The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome. Today is Tuesday. We've got a really exciting show planned for you. We're going to be with you live for the next 3 hours talking about topics having to do with autism and how we can be more effective and more effective working with our children on the spectrum so that they can reach their full potential. That's what we're all about here. We know that this is a difficult journey, but we also know that there's hope and that there's help, and we want to connect you to that help and support that I know that you need. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, I know your heart is in the right place and you want to do right by your children. You want to help them to learn and to grow, and you want to feel good and confident about the kinds of things that you're doing with them. And it's so humbling, right? When you have a child that you want to connect with and you're having difficulty doing it, it's so humbling. And there are so many things on this journey that are difficult. Well, we want to help you to sort that all out, to negotiate what you have to negotiate, answer the questions that you have, and make you feel comfortable that you're the most effective, efficient member of the team that you can possibly be. We want our kids to reach their full potential, but we want to reach our full potential too, right? Nothing feels worse than feeling incompetent with your child. Oh my goodness, I have been there, done that. I am your conduit here. I'm sort of the go-between. I am not an expert in autism. We talk about ABA therapy here a lot. I am not an expert in ABA therapy. ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. If you're new to this journey and haven't heard about ABA, I'm so glad you're here because it is one of the things that we will talk about a lot. It's not the only thing we talk about, right? Because there's a lot to this journey. But ABA, if we learn the tools of ABA and start to apply them creatively to our lives, to ourselves, and to our children on the autism spectrum, we will see progress in all things, which is a wonderful thing. And we will see our children getting functional communication skills, being able to communicate with us, and things get better when that happens. Let's just, cut right to the heart of it. If you had the ability to know what was going on, what your child needed, what your child wanted, how much better could life be? That's where we're coming from. That's where I'm coming from. Again, I'm not the expert in it, but I bring people in to talk to you that have expertise in different areas of autism, and I give you access so you can be asking them questions. Tell us the kinds of things that you want us to talk about here, the things that you want us to cover, and that's what we'll do, because that's what we're here for, is you, to support you on this journey. I mentioned I'm not an expert in ABA, so you think to yourself, okay, well, why is she here? Clearly she is not an accomplished anchor. I'm a mom. I'm a former teacher, and I'm a mom. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He regressed into autism. So he had, I don't know, it's like, how many times have I said this? And different days it makes me emotional. Other days I'm fine. I don't know. Just on an edge today. Okay, so he had skills. He was developing what appeared to me to be typically. I mean, I go back over it with a fine comb from time to time when I want to drive myself crazy, which hopefully is not often. But in any case, he regressed into autism. Like I know a lot of your children did, and others, it happened overnight, in different ways. But my child regressed into autism a little bit every day until he got to the point where he had virtually no functional communication skills. And it was a terrifying time. So grateful I'm not there anymore, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And I want you to know that I am really committed to helping you wherever you are on the journey. You might have been on the journey 10 years longer than I have, or 20 years longer than I have been on the journey, and you might know so much more that you could share, that you could help me to share with everybody else, or this might be your first day, or anywhere in between. But I want you to know, wherever you are in this journey, I am here as a resource to help to connect you with the experts and the information that you would like. So how can you get a hold of us here to tell us the kinds of things that you would like to tell us? Lots of different ways. If you're watching us right now on autism-live.com, this is our home channel, and we webcast here from 9 a.m. to noon Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. If you're watching us live during that time, what you'll see on your screen, it says Shannon is now answering, and there's a little box underneath that that says your questions. You can type anything that you would like in there. It automatically shows up here on my screen, and if it is appropriate, I share it with everybody. If it isn't, like it has your personal information, I don't share that, right? So if you need for us to get in contact with you for something, you can put that on there. It's not going to show up on everybody's screen. There's a step where I get to choose what I actually show. And if you do put personal information, I won't share it. But anything else, that's appropriate, we share, and we'll help to hook you up with an expert if there's somebody here that can talk about it. If it's something that's within my particular wheelhouse as a parent, I'll address it, but a lot of things aren't. And we will help you to hook up with an expert so that you get an answer to your question, even if it's that we say, okay, we're going to cover this tomorrow when we have this expert on, But it is not the only way to get a hold of us. And by the way, if you're watching and it says rebroadcast, then that question box won't work. It's only active during the time that we're live, and maybe 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after. So just know that that's how that works. If it says rebroadcast, or if you're watching us in any one of the other places that when we're in a lot of different places to watch, and you want to ask a question or make a comment or make a suggestion or ask if you can be on the show, because the answer is almost always yes, right? Unless we just don't have time. But there are other ways of getting a hold of us, is what I'm trying to get to. And of course, the main way is through email, right? We all do a lot of emailing these days. Well, here's our email address. You can email to us whatever it is that you want to talk about. We will get back to you as soon as we're back in the studio, and we'll cover your question on the next live show. If it's appropriate. Sometimes you've asked us not to cover it on the show, but just have somebody get back to you, and we've been able to do that. And we'll send you an email written response and hopefully a link to when we covered it on the show. So that's one of the ways that you can get a hold of us. Another way that you can get a hold of us is via the phone. If you want to give us a call, here's our phone number. You can call during the live show and be patched directly into the studio. You and I can be having a conversation. You can have a conversation with whoever our guest is, and that's a really gratifying thing. If you call when it is not during our live webcast hours, during business hours, you will get somebody who will answer your phone call, or you can leave a message, and we will get back to you as soon as we're back in the studio. By the way, you can also Skype in. We're going to be Skyping with a young gentleman a little bit later on today that I'm very excited. Kerry Magro is going to be on the show. You may have seen him on Kerry's Corner. He does his own little video piece. He is a young gentleman on the autism spectrum who is just as sweet as he can be, and goes around the country and in fact around the world to cover things that are happening in the world of autism. So we'll look very forward to having him Skype in later on. That's during the 11 o'clock hour with Kerry Magro. But if you want to Skype in, you can. And if you have video capability on your computer, then you can be right here side by side with me on the show like Kerry's going to be. So please take advantage. And if you don't have a camera, that's okay. We can do audio only, just like the phone, right? And we can do that all around the world. Yesterday, we Skyped with a gentleman from England. So don't be shy. Give us a Skype call. You can also get a hold of us on Facebook. We always put the question of the day up on Facebook, and there are clips that are up there, interesting things. We let you know information that's there. We appreciate it if you give us a like. We're very new to the Facebook world, and we appreciate as many likes and shares as possible. You can also tweet with us. We aren't new to the tweet world, but I am new to the tweet tweet world. It's not my forte yet, but I'm working on the Twitter thing. So tweet away with me and help to educate me about how this works. And that we enjoy any interaction with you at all, though. And I want to remind you that there are lots of different ways that you could be watching the show. You're watching us right now on autism-live.com, but we're available on other sites and other ways as well, too. You can be watching us on blip.tv. Blip is a really great way to be watching us because you can search back shows, you can search back topics, you can, fast forward, rewind, whatever, pause, because, you've got a therapist coming to the door, so you pause it. You got to do dishes. It's life, right? So really user-friendly. We love that. And by the way, you can do the same thing on YouTube, on our very own YouTube channel. We have a lot of those short clips that are really great for catching up with what's happening with different people. You can go back and watch our interview with Holly Robinson Pete. We've been talking a lot about Joey Travolta this week because we have a lovely video of this. He does inclusion films, by the way. And we have a lovely clip of a camp that he just did in conjunction with Autism Care and Treatment Today. And go watch our interview with Joey Travolta, because I just was smitten. And I think it's evident. I'm very happily married, and my husband knows that. And I didn't mention it to Joey Travolta. I don't think he cared. But, he was kind of the cat's pajamas. If you know what I mean. I just was so excited because he was so passionate about helping our kids, and he just, I don't know, that je ne sais quoi, right? But check that out. You can look at all those things on YouTube. A lot of really wonderful interviews that we've had the opportunity. We're so blessed to be able to do that. In any case, so you can watch us on YouTube. But by the way, we're also a free download on iTunes, which is pretty sweet, right? No cost on any of these things. Nobody's asking for your credit card information. You don't have to log in. It's not a spam factory. This is about real help in real time, right? Real support, because I know, and you guys know, that sometimes you just feel like you're alone in this journey, but you are not. You are not alone. You can be finding us on iTunes for free, as with all the other things. And hey, by the way, we're also on Ustream, so that's just another way that you could be watching us. And if there is a way that you would like to see us, there's a format or a site or something that you would like to see the show on that would make it more conducive for you, would you do me a favor and just let us know? Because we want to help you in the way that is useful to you. And I don't know everything. I don't even like to pretend that I know even a little bit because it gets me into trouble. And but help us. Let us know if there's something out there, that some different way of being able to watch us. We'd like to be there for you, whatever it is. Okay. I mentioned that we're going to be talking a lot about ABA, and one of the things that comes with autism and with ABA and sending your child to school is jargon. And we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to here as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we take one word, one phrase, one anagram, and demystify it so that hopefully we can begin to build a vocabulary that we understand. Nothing is worse than going to a meeting for your child and you're sitting there and you've waited. We had a mom on last week, Lisa DeShirlia, who has a petition for people to sign asking, she wants 1 million signatures asking our government to give help and support to adults with autism right now. And she's a mom of a young girl on the autism spectrum. And Lisa disclosed on the show here with us that she has begun to realize that she thinks that maybe she might qualify for a diagnosis. And it was very brave of her to say that on the show and to share some of the difficulties that she's experiencing. It was really breathtaking for me was when I said, okay, so, where are you in the process? And she said, well, I finally have an appointment. And when I said, oh, well, when is the appointment? And she said, January 3rd of next year, right? And, it was one of those things where I said earlier, when my son was diagnosed, it was a long time ago. He's now 9, and he was 2.5 when he was diagnosed. And it was a long time ago, but some days it feels like it was just yesterday. And even so, there are parts of it and the frustration of it that I get distance from time to time. And when she said that, it really brought home, because I like to think that things have improved over the years. But I remember when we first realized that our son something wasn't right. And by the way, we had been to the pediatrician several times and said, we think something's going on. The new pediatrician said, oh, no, everything's fine. He's stopping speaking, but, wait a while. Sit around and wait a while, and he'll start speaking in paragraphs again. Oh, thank you so very much. In any case, when we finally said, okay, we're not listening to this woman anymore, we set about making an appointment, and it was 3 months out. And I found that so disturbing. And it was 3 months of just sheer torture for me. We didn't sit still during that 3 months. We went about getting funding, and we, started doing a bunch of different things. And it was a very busy 3 months, but it was 3 months of hell for me. And to hear, and I've heard from parents all over the place, oh, you only had to wait 3 months to get into a developmental pediatrician to get an appointment? Are you kidding me? You're so lucky. And to hear that all these years later, here's a mom who's, struggling, really struggling, 6 months later, she's going to have an appointment. And it just took my breath away. It really brings home where we are in this, right? There's work to be done. But in any case, you wait 6 months for the meeting. You go in and sit down and think, okay, I'm going to, finally get some information about my child and the kinds of things I should be doing and what's going on with my child and where their skill levels are. And then the people start to speak in jargon. And you go, okay, I have no idea what you just said to me. And I've heard this from parents. We just had Gabriella, I'm going to mess up her last name, Gabriella Teixeira, who is one of the anchors from Univision, and she was saying, I speak 4 languages fluently. And I sat down in that first meeting and said, what is this language you're speaking? I have no idea what you just said about my child, about my baby. So we do have to make friends with the jargon. It is so essential that we know what these terms are. We're never going to know them all, right? Let go of that expectation. We're never going to know them all. But if we can know the core ones that are going to come up, it's going to make it easier for us to communicate with the experts. It's going to make it easier for us to be able to start intervention for our children. So it's really important. We do it a little bit at a time, just like how we teach our children, so that we can make friends with it and not have it be overwhelming. Because let's face it, there's enough about this that's overwhelming, right? We don't need to be any more overwhelmed. So, and I like to make it as enjoyable as possible by making fun of the definitions. We give you the word or the phrase or the anagram, then we give you an actual definition, which is usually just more jargon, and not always. And then we give you a working definition, which is not as exact. It makes our experts crazy, but we have to have a way to begin to understand it, right? So we put it in just really plain terms. All right, our term for today, and this is one that we talk about a lot. It's a word that's going to come up, especially if your child is starting to gain language. Our word for today is manned. Now, I don't know about you, but I had my master's degree well before my child ever was diagnosed with autism. This is not a word that ever came up in conversation. I never read it in a book. I never saw it anywhere or heard anybody say it until my child was diagnosed with autism. I'm just saying. And then suddenly it was the topic of conversation every single day around my dining room table. So a pretty important word. So what does this mean? Our actual definition, the manned, is a type of verbal behavior that is controlled by a motivating operation, deprivation, or aversive state, and is followed by specific reinforcement. The man specifies its own reinforcer. Thank you. What the heck does that mean, right? It's so much clearer now. I don't know why I ever didn't know what a manned was. Okay, so let's go to our working definition. Our working definition, let's make it as easy as possible. Manding, or the manned, is to request, demand, or ask for something. So, and a manned can be vocal. A manned can be a sign or a gesture, or it can be pointing to something. Lots of different ways that a child can mand. And it's so important because stop and think about it right now. Is your child manding? Does your child ask for something? This can be, pointing at the cup on the counter and going, or just pointing. This can be your child, just reaching for something. In a sense, that's a mand, right? Or there can be sometimes that your child is manding. Maybe your child is saying, mama, 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 with their hands out. That's requesting mama, right? But the truth of the matter is that between the time that a child is 2 and 3, they should be manding hundreds of times a day. And if your child isn't, this is a huge red flag. That language is not being acquired in the proper speed. So what we want to do is increase the manding. And there are lots of good reasons why we want to increase the manding. If they're requested, first of all, it's an easier thing to get to, right? Because if it's something they want, they're motivated. Right? And we teach them to mand for it. And when you mand for it, you get it. And when we teach a child that, and we can teach any child to do that. No matter where you are in the spectrum, no matter how old you are, we can teach children to mand. I need you to know that, because I know there's somebody out there within the sound of my voice who's going, well, that's for kids who fill in the blank. No. We can teach all children how to mand. And in fact, a lot of children already mand a little bit, right? Because when the stakes are high, they will mand. Maybe they don't mand appropriately, but they're requesting things in their own way. And we want to make sure that they're manding appropriately hundreds and hundreds of times a day. Because when we do see the manding go up, where the child requests things and gets them, guess what happens to challenging behavior? Right? So exciting. I call it the magic X on the graph, that, when they're charting how many times, and they'll do this when they start therapy with your child, there'll be a chart where they'll chart challenging behaviors, and usually that's way up here, right? And it's consistent and some spikes up, and right? Life is not good. And the manding is way down here. And what happens is they begin to teach manding, it shoots up, the challenging behavior goes boom, and it makes an X as it passes each other. They literally take each other's places, and what you have is a child who's requesting like mad and not tantruming near as much anymore. It doesn't mean that the tantrums go completely away, right? But a whole lot of tantruming will go bye-bye, bye-bye. We love that. So manding, so important. How do you get your child to mand? That it becomes that thing where nothing is for free. So the child doesn't get a drink unless they're pointing to something, gesturing for something, saying something. They got to work for it. Now, I know that's hard. I know that there's a phase in which we all get a little emotional and go, but clearly the child wants it. They got to ask for it. And we see that in order for any behavior to be maintained, this is rule number 1 of ABA, in order for any behavior to happen on a regular basis, it has to be reinforcing. It's hard the first couple of times, and we're going to help them to get the answer. We're not just going to leave them out in the dark by themselves and go, well, you didn't ask for it, right? We're going to physically maneuver them through how to ask for it. We're going to, give them the sounds, and we're going to reward approximations. But the main thing is we want to get to the reward as soon as possible. But that's true in all lessons that we teach. We get to the reward, because we know if we can get to the reward, we're more likely to have the behavior happen more and more and more, even if it's something that's hard for the child. If it's rewarding, they'll work through the hard. Isn't that what we want? But we got to be kind to them. We can't have this expectation, well, you should know this. You should know how to ask for the cookie. They don't. It's not their fault. It's not your fault. But we're going to work on them learning how to ask for the cookie. And you're going to gauge with the experts that are working on your child's individual team, because this is not one size fits all, right? For some kids who already have some sounds and are already requesting some things, we're going to take the cookie and we're going to say to them, we're going to sort of tempt them with the cookie, put it close to them, and if they start to reach for the cookie, we're going to say, cookie, and we're going to point to our lips and say cookie. And if the child makes any noise like, they're going to get that cookie. Yay! Praise with it. Good talking. It's only a but it's part of what's going to get us there, right? It gets exciting. If the child is not making any sounds and hasn't made any sounds, we might not start with doing that, because that might be too difficult. But we don't say, well, we're just going to work it and work it and work it. We're going to meet the child where they are. We might start with, depending on if the child has shown skills with gesturing, we might start with sign, or we might start with a picture exchange communication, text, or another iconic communication system. If the child is older, we might go directly to a device like an iPad, and we show the cookie, see, and the child, looks like they're even remotely interested, and then we're going to take and guide their hand to the iPad where it says cookie, and we say, good asking, there's the cookie. Yay, still the praise. So there's lots of different ways that a child could request it. It's got to be what's right for where the child is right now. But it always has the same benefits. If the child has a way to ask for what they want, challenging behavior, right? Gotta love it. Demand is an awesome thing. And when your child is doing it appropriately hundreds of times a day, life gets better. It really does. It's just one step along the way, but it's a huge one. And it usually happens in the beginning. Okay, so that's the mand. Now, aren't you glad that you know what a mand is? Think of command, asking, right? All right. We always have a question of the day for you. The question of the day meant to get you thinking, hopefully get you to participate on Facebook. I love it when you guys talk to each other on Facebook and give each other support and say, yes, I agree with you, or, it's different for me. Is it like this for anybody else? I really love that. So today is a perfect day to participate in the question of the day, because, sometimes I give you an opportunity to complain, and other times I give you an opportunity to dream, and sometimes I give you an opportunity to brag. And that's what today is. What does your child do that you brag about? And I hope the list is lengthy. Send me paragraphs, send me small novels, brag. Door is open. What does your child do that is just so awesome that you wish you could shout it from the treetops? And guess what? I will shout it from this treetop for you at around 10:20 this morning. So have that. Go onto Facebook and answer, what does your child do that you brag about? Because I know there's something awesome that your child does. I brag about my child all the time. He's awesome. He is great at taking tests, which, who would have thought? And he's smart as a whip, and he's sensitive, and he's funny, and he's cute as a button. So, and he's thoughtful. My kid is thoughtful. Having to learn how to take other people's perspective, he's still not a genius at it. He's a 9-year-old boy. Let's put our expectations where they should be. But he does sometimes. He takes other people's perspectives, and it takes my breath away when he does that. So my kid is awesome. And I know that your kids are too. So I want to hear about it. I want to hear all the things that they do that are absolutely awesome. Look, we got enough on this journey that just is not fun, right? And there are things that our kids all struggle with and have to work through, and it's just, right? Not fun. So anytime we get an opportunity to say what our kids do that's great, let's take it. All right. We always have a topic of the day. If you haven't guessed already, our topic for this entire week is teaching functional communications, because that's something we can do with everyone. We can teach functional communications. We talk a lot about teaching language, and I mean language in the full sense of being able to understand what people are saying and to be able to communicate what you want. And I know that there are some of you who watch whose children are not verbal, and some of you who are watching whose children are not vocal. Let's talk for just a second about what the difference between those two things is, because it's always very confusing to me, and I think the words get used interchangeably unintentionally a lot of times. But what the experts tell me is that when you are verbal, it means that you have functional communication skills. So I may not have the vocal capability to say something, but I can point to it and tell you I want something, or I can write, or I can sign. That is functional communications. That is still verbal. Okay, a lot of times when we have a child who isn't capable of vocal speech but can communicate their needs, there are people who say that they're nonverbal, but what they mean is non-vocal, that the child can communicate. Like we had Carly Fleischman's dad on recently. He wrote what is it, Carly's Voice? It's Carly's Voice, I believe. And about his daughter, and she was considered nonverbal. She had no way of communicating her needs, and there was no signing, there was no communication. And when she was about 9 or 10, her parents were away on a trip, and she leaned over with the person who was taking care of her and typed on their computer, on their laptop, "Teeth hurt, help." And it, like, what a devastating moment, right? But what a moment of celebration too, because it opened a whole world. Now, if you haven't, go to Carly's Voice on Facebook and you can have a conversation with Carly. Carly is a huge social networking person who has tons and tons of friends, and she interacts and she writes blogs. She's a teenager now, and while she still does not have speech, she very much has functional communication skills. And we want to get to that point with absolutely everyone. Functional communications can be taught. It's not easy. It's very exhausting, and sometimes it takes a long period of time. But I love to say on the show, we don't give up on anybody, because all of our kids are worth it, and all of our parents are worth it too. The parents' nightmare of, I don't know what my child wants, I can't communicate, I don't know what they're thinking, I don't know what they're feeling. That's I think probably the worst possible thing, to be right there with your child and have no idea, right? So we teach functional communications. Now, for a lot of our kids, that leads to very naturally spoken language, which is a wonderful thing. It isn't the case for all of our kids, but for all of our kids, we want to and can get to functional communication. So we're talking about that all week. In particular, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Evelyn Gould is going to be with us. She joins us every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and this week her topic is functional communications. So a great time to be asking questions. I know we had this topic specifically because a lot of you have written in and said, how do I get my children to talk? How do I get my children to talk? And a couple of weeks ago, Evelyn said, that's a huge question, but it may not be the right question. That before, especially if a child is having difficulty with the vocal spoken part of it, we really want to go back to a step before that and teach functional communications, which may lead to the talking. But at least if it doesn't, it's time well spent, because you still have the ability to communicate. It's a powerful, powerful thing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our schedule today. We're going to be having a motor tip coming up in a few minutes. Of course, it's Tuesday, so we do the healthy eating tip of the week. When I become the least popular person on the face of the earth, that's okay. And I mentioned at 11 o'clock, we're going to be joined via Skype by Kerry Magro. And he is an awesome young gentleman who is on the autism spectrum, who does a series of short videos that are called Kerry's Corner. And you can find these videos on Autism Speaks Videos YouTube channel. You can go there, and they're fascinating. Kerry is just... there's just something about him. He is the perfect person for this job. He's a great spokesperson for autism and a light on this planet. So we're so excited that we're going to be joined by Kerry at 11 o'clock today. Set your clocks. You won't want to miss that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be back with the motor tip of the week. Stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. It's that time of the week when we take on the motor tip for the week. And we know how important motor skills are, right? I mean, I feel like I need to go back a little bit and say, you know, on this journey, our children have lots and lots of different areas where we see they get behind. Now, it isn't necessarily true that our children, once they get an autism spectrum diagnosis, are going to be behind in terms of motor skills, right? If you look at the classic autism DSM-4 diagnosis, it doesn't say anything about the child having motor deficits at all, actually. Now, it is currently a part of the Asperger definition, but not a part of the classical autism definition. So, but here's why I think it's important, for all of us. Because when we go into, we always talk about early intervention, how important early behavioral intervention is. And that means that our child is going to be spending a significant amount of time learning things that they need to catch up on, right? If they're 3 years old and they're at a 1-year-old level, they got to catch up those 2 years. If they're 5 years old, they're going to have to catch up however much time they're behind. And when we do that, the therapist, if they're a good therapist and they're doing good ABA, there's going to be a fair amount of physical activity. They're not just going to have them just sit in a chair endlessly. And if they are, it's not good ABA, right? Still, a typical child child who is getting language and picking it up very organically and typically, they're going to get more physical time than our children on the spectrum are, just by virtue of the fact if we're doing 25 to 40 hours of therapy a week and there has to be some time to catch up, there's going to be less physical activity. So our children run the risk of, they may not start out on the diagnosis being behind in motor skills, but they may get that way. And let's mention too that there are 4 different areas of motor skills that we really will look at. Gross motor, which is the large motor, and that's what I was just referring to, that physical activity, all that reaching up and pulling up and, negotiating that jungle gym. I hope you're getting your kids out there, but let's be honest. It is not as easy to get them out there for long periods of time as it is for kids who are developing typically. Even if you aren't doing therapy and you're trying to take your child to work on the jungle gym and put them in the pool, a lot of times when they're on the spectrum, they just don't have the ability to do that at the same amount and level as kids who are developing typically without reaching a point where it's sensory meltdown for them. So I think in general, all of our kids could use more physical activity, right? And I know that our kids on the spectrum, it seems like they tend to go one way or the other. They tend to be kids who have issues with weight, or they tend to be kids who are straight up and down because they, got some feeding issues. So we got to find the middle ground in there, where they're getting enough exercise, because it will help them in so many other ways. So that's one area, and we're going to come back and talk about that one in a second. Then there's the fine motor, which is the hand skills. Now our kids can be really behind in those kinds of things very frequently, because it requires a level of concentration and coordination and being able to tune other things out, because you aren't born with those physical skills. You got to build them up over time. So things like being able to write and cut and color and open a bottle and zip and button can be really difficult for a child because there's so much else to deal with. So that's the fine motor stuff that we work on. Then there's visual motor, our children's ability to track things, to be able to focus eyes so that they're not having binocular vision, and visual perception, to be able to see when something is a distance away, when something is bigger or smaller. Sometimes our kids need some help with those kinds of things. And then of course there's oral motor that, I say this all the time. Baby comes out, it does not have the musculature to be able to say oscillating sprinkler. That has to build up over time. And if it isn't practiced on a regular basis, if it isn't reinforcing, and for our kids it usually wasn't, they're going to be behind in the oral motor. And there's nothing more frustrating than having, and oh, believe me, I was there with my child with this, and I was somebody who taught speech in theater. I knew all the things, but I couldn't get my son to make the motions, right? Because I needed help with that. And so here was my son, and he was ready to communicate, had this extensive vocabulary, and he would say things to somebody and they wouldn't understand what he was saying. He still struggles with that sometimes. We're still in speech to get him caught up oral motor wise. And you always want to make sure that you're working on that when you're working on speech with a child, because if they get to the point where they're saying something and they know that they're saying the words, but it's gobbledygook and you can't understand it, boy, that is not reinforcing, right? So oral motor, really important. All of these things together, you can see they're just really important things. And yet sometimes people are like, we're not working on the motor things. We're not working on the basketball skills. We're working on social skills and we're working on language skills. But you know what? When they're on the playground, which is social, and their kids are talking to them, if they're in the basketball game, that's when that stuff is going to happen in real life. So, and there's the health issue, right? So we want our kids to be caught up motor-wise. All right. So getting to the tip of the week, we've been watching the Olympics, right? I hope that you guys have been watching the Olympics. And you know what? I hope you've been watching with your kids. And here's a good reason why. Because a lot of our kids are visual. And even our kids who aren't visual, like I was sitting at a play date on Sunday watching my child in a pool with a young boy who has the same diagnosis as my son, but they're vastly different. They're the same age. They just couldn't be more different. And so the moms were sitting on the side of the pool and we're watching these boys interact in the pool. And it was fascinating because they began to play Olympics in the swimming pool. And they were having these races with each other. And one of them was being Ryan Lochte and the other one was being Michael Phelps. And it was interesting to watch them. And they both have had swimming lessons earlier in their life. But I was saying, it's time for my son to have them again, because I think he would find it much more reinforcing now. He has enough of the skill that I think they could actually wants to learn how to dive and all these things. But we were sitting there and watching them interact, and the other little boy is very visual. And the mom was saying, we've been watching the Olympics, and it's been great because they tried to teach him the butterfly stroke before, and he didn't want to do it. But now he's watching Ryan Phelps do it, and suddenly he's in the pool and he's doing it. I was watching him do it. So he'd had the lesson 2 years ago. He hadn't had a lesson in the last couple of weeks, but watching it on the Olympics, he saw it and wanted to try it. So he's in the pool and he's trying it. And I said, what's fascinating about that is that my son is, he's a very visual person too, but that's not where his big learning is. He's a concept person. So watching them do it, when they show the long shot of them in the pool and there's a lot of splashing, my son was in the pool and he was just splashing, but what we watched was when they do the underwater cam, and they show exactly what it looks like, and then they show it from 360 and they take it apart, and they, how they do that in some of the news reports, and they say, that's when my son got the specs. That's when he got it. So I think that the Olympics can be a really good thing. And, something that they've been doing a fair amount of research on is a part of the brain called the mirror neurons. And believe me, I'm not a scientist, but years ago when my son was diagnosed, I remember getting Science Weekly and reading a whole article about the mirror neurons, and that they had done a study. They set up people to watch the Olympics and Olympic sports and sports competitions like that. And they had them hooked up so that they could watch what was happening in their brain. And oddly enough, when a person with a typical brain was watching the Olympics, the same part of their brain that would have lit up if they were actually doing the skiing would light up. And so they dubbed them the mirror neurons. It's a part of the brain, and if you see somebody doing it, if you're not on the spectrum, your brain lights up. And they were noticing that for people on the autism spectrum, the mirror neurons weren't being lit up from watching. So, over the years, I don't know where they are in terms of the studies, but they were postulating at that point that perhaps these video games where they're watching and doing, and they're manipulating by moving, they're manipulating what's happening on the screen, would have the potential to light up the mirror neurons. I don't know that anybody has definitively found that out yet, but I do see with my child, and I hear this from other parents, that being able to do those kinds of video games changes the way they look at things. I don't know what that is, but I don't know. It just changes, and I'm interested to hear more, and maybe that's something we can ask some of our researchers at some point if they've found out anything more about mirror neurons. Like I said, I don't think the science is there. I don't think that you need to run out and get that kind of a video game system, although I do see with my son that it has been very helpful. Very interesting. But in the meantime, watch the Olympics, because for the children to get excited and to see what it is, I think helps some of them to get excited about doing that on the playground. If they find it reinforcing, you can't beat that, right? Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the healthy eating tip of the week. Stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grandpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It's time for the healthy eating tip of the week. I know it's like that time of the week when I become the least popular person because I'm wanting us all, to, myself included, to eat healthier. Except that, you know, it's the time of year when it really is the easiest, right? Listen, in January and February, we can talk about how difficult it is to find things in the grocery store that are organic and are in your price range. I totally get it. But this time of year when people are leaving zucchini on other people's doorsteps that's organically grown because they have too much of it in their garden, you know what I'm saying? We can do this. We absolutely can do this. So take advantage. You know, I'm always saying to you, eat seasonally, support farmers. It may not be organic, but they might be in transition and not using pesticides. Ask the questions. We know that's what's best for our children, that if we possibly can, to give them things that are organic, that are locally grown, very helpful, and that we want to be eating the rainbow, right? So all of those things said, and I hope you're going to your local farmers market, you're finding online, just, you know, Google and see. I have a wonderful time with my child at the farmers market every weekend. We go and he gets to sample all the fruit. He knows the vendors now. It's a very bonding time for he and I. It's something that we do every single week. He helps me with the groceries, and you know, it's part of our time. I want him to be connected to the food that he eats and understand where it comes from, and to be a part of the decision making, that we go there and I say, you know, what do you want to eat this week? What looks good to you? And that he's starting to notice at 9. Again, he's a boy. We're not having the expectations that, you know, that he's going to be up on everything, but he's starting to notice, you know, because he'll ask for certain things and say, why don't they have this time? Well, it's not the time of year. It doesn't grow all year long, right? So it leads to all these great conversations. But what I want to talk to you today about is our kids are finicky, right? Sometimes they have food preferences, things they like, things that they don't like. And a lot of times a child will get really specific about textures that they will or won't eat, colors that they will or won't eat, and temperatures that they will or will not eat. Now, if it's not disabling your child from having a healthy diet, maybe it's not the thing to worry about this week, but for a lot of you, it can get to a point where your child won't eat anything else. And we definitely have gone through some phases like that with Jem, where there was a phase when he only wanted to eat potatoes. And that was it. And however a potato came, and you could set things in front of him, and he would only eat a potato and nothing else. It was very early on. And I went through great distress until I did some reading for some other parents who said, oh, I have the potato child too. My child only wants to eat starch. And I do think that whenever, and again, I'm not a nutritionist, but whenever our children have something and they narrow it down to like one thing and there's not a variety, it usually means something's up. Right? Same thing with us. If all I'm eating are potatoes, something is generally up or something's going to be up, right? That's not a healthy diet. I do think it's worthwhile to maybe talk to a nutritionist, talk to your doctor. We have the family joke in our family that, all doctors and all nutritionists are not equal and even. I myself am allergic to wheat. And when I was pregnant with my son, I needed to go into the emergency room, wasn't feeling well. They wanted to keep me overnight for observation. And when I realized that, I was in the emergency room, and the ER doctor was there, and my husband was there by the bedside, and they said, well, we just want to keep you overnight. We think you're fine, but, your electrolytes are low. We want to keep you overnight and just sort of monitor. And my husband said, oh, and I said, oh, okay, well, then I'm going to need you to go to the grocery store and get me some food so that I've got something to eat. Always my first thought, right? Not I need pajamas, I need something to eat. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, we have a kitchen here. We can fix you something. And I said, oh, I'm allergic to wheat. I'm very finicky. I don't feel well as it is, so I don't want to risk getting something contaminated. I just, I want to make sure that I am eating properly so that I don't get any sicker, right? Last thing I need right now is an allergic reaction. And she says, well, you're allergic to wheat? That's fine. We have stuff here. And I said, really? Like what? What do you have that isn't full of wheat? And keep in mind, this was many years ago. Now everybody's much more sensitive to these kinds of things. And she goes, oh, we can make you a sandwich. And I said, really? You have bread here that doesn't have wheat in it? Like, really? 9 years ago. This is really amazing to me, because even now, if I went to a hospital and they said, oh, yes, we have brown rice bread, I would be shocked and amazed. But 9 years ago, especially. And she goes, oh, we have white bread. An ER doctor. And my husband, who was always made fun of me when I said, doctors, not always up on the nutrition things. And he looked at her and said, she's allergic to wheat. And the doctor said, yeah, well, we have white bread. And my husband said, and what exactly do you think white bread is made out of? White? And we had a really good laugh about it. And then, of course, she thought about it and went, oh, right. I thought you just meant whole wheat. No. White bread would just about put me in the emergency room where I already was. So in any case, but I do think it's worthwhile sometimes if you've got a good doctor, a good pediatrician, to talk about if your child's got some issues going on, especially if it's a texture thing. You may want to look and see, or even a temperature thing. Sometimes there's something medically going on that you might want to sort out. Because if your child is only eating soupy things, maybe there's something going on. You want to make sure. And once you've figured that out and said, okay, there isn't anything physiologically that's preventing the child from having food that they have to chew. There's nothing going on dentally that causes pain. There's no extra sensitivity going on there to temperature. Then you can start to work on things. But as we always talk about things, if it's not reinforcing, then why would you want to? Now, I know a lot of you are out there and your child doesn't want to chew. And then there are some of you who are out there who were in the camp that I was at that my child didn't want to have anything that was creamy. Just didn't want anything that was creamy. And if it was cold and creamy, forget it. My child, we didn't allow him to have sugar the first 2 years he was on the planet. And then on his second birthday, we were like, here, have some cake and ice cream. And I remember somebody sticking some ice cream in his mouth, and he went, like Tom Hanks in Big. He couldn't get it off of his tongue quick enough. It was so unpleasant to him. Now, is that the worst thing in the world? Could I still feed him a healthy diet without giving him anything that was cold and creamy? You betcha. I could. I didn't really have to worry about that. Now, years later, when he would go to an ice cream party and we wanted to give him something that was the equivalent of because then he was off sugar again and off of milk as well. We wanted him to be able to have something that's cold and creamy. It's still not his favorite thing. I will be really honest with you. It is not his big deal, but he's capable of having it and eating it and being a champ and saying thank you and so that if he had need of living sustenance on something cold and creamy, he could do it. He could suck it up and do it. But it isn't something he's going to choose. It's because it's just not his preference. And for those of you on the other side of things, that you have kids who don't want to chew, there are all kinds of things that you can do, but you've got to make sure, we've talked before on the show, we've had experts on the show talking about you want to go slowly, so slowly. After you've figured out that there's no physiological thing, and you've been grinding stuff in the food processor for a long time till it's absolutely almost liquid, giving it to your child, well, grind it just a little bit less each and every time, but make sure it's something that tastes really good. Like, we would never want to grind spinach for a child who doesn't love spinach and try to feed them that and try to bump them texture-wise on that. We want to start with preferred foods first. So, if your child loves ice cream, if your child is the exact opposite of my child, loves the cold and creamy, maybe you're going to mix something that's very fine, that's tasty, into the ice cream so that they get used to a little bit of a grain of something and have it gradually get bigger. We've had Dr. Adele Nadowski in talking before about how you can pair, if it's that you're trying to get a child interested in something that they're not interested in, that you can grind a very small amount of it and sneak it in, and then over time make that larger until it flips and there's more of the non-preferred than there is of the preferred, and it's a way of getting the child's taste buds to acclimatize to it, to get them to actually like it. It takes time, though, time. And I know it's the thing we don't have in the kitchen is time anymore in our busy to-do world, but the statistics show that a food, a non-preferred food, an unknown food, has to be presented a minimum of 20 times before the child is really going to give it a go. 20 times. I love vegetables. The only vegetable that I really don't like are wax beans. And I would just be willing to bet you that wax beans have not been presented to me 20 times in my life. They just haven't. I'm sure that my mother gave up because I turned my nose up at wax beans. They taste like green beans, right? I guess. I don't even eat them now as an adult. But I such an aversion as a child. Keep bringing it back. Don't make it a battle. Keep bringing it back. But when you're switching textures, when you're switching temperatures, when you're adding colors, go slowly and make it really, really preferred. If your child is only eating potatoes, and, I would seriously look at that, right? We had to seriously look at that. And for us, I'm not going to say for you, but for us, it meant stopping all potatoes for a period of time. And then my son would eat other things. And as soon as I would put a potato back in, that's all he wanted was potatoes. So even now, years later, we really minimize the amount of he has potatoes again, but they are like a once every 2 weeks kind of a thing. Although I'm thinking about that. That's a bit of a lie over this summer. There were French fries eaten over the summer more than once every 2 weeks. So I need to own up to that. But that's not the norm for us. So, move slowly on things. I wouldn't necessarily cold turkey the potato thing, but maybe, if they won't eat anything else, that is what we had to do. But not offering that as advice. Individual children, you know better than I do what your child needs. But if your child is not engaging in enough variety, take a look at it. See what you can do. Move very, very slowly, like in Jell-O. Move, but be moving in a direction. Be mindful of it. Okay, it's time now for the A word. This is the lovely documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders that follows a little boy, Jack Riley, who, by the way, has some different food issues, right? He's got some real aversions. This is a child who you show him a banana and he's likely to burst into tears, right? He'll eat it if it's peeled and cut up, but show him a full banana and it's a big emotional experience, right? But they've been working on that slowly with him. That's not what this episode is about, though. But you can go back and watch the early episodes to see how they're working on his food aversions with him. It's very fascinating. But this is the episode, this is the time that they've taken on toileting. We said it was coming because he had gotten to the point where he was vocalizing, "I'm having a poo. Give me a minute," which I found wonderful and luscious, that he got to that point. This was something that the mother had said, "Are we ever going to get there?" And they did. And so now they've taken on toileting. So take a look. We'll talk about it on the other side. This is the A word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
This is day 3 of potty training. Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
Ready?
25 weeks ago, Jack Riley had a huge breakdown when Jessica asked him to sit down, a direction that's usually very easy for him to do. At the time, no one knew he had to go potty. He didn't have the language to tell his parents or Jessica that he needed time.
Jack, what are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping? Oh, okay.
Jump to 4 weeks ago, and you can see he is now able to communicate what he needs when a demand is placed on him, instead of tantruming like he did before when he didn't have language.
Poopy your diapers.
Okay. How do you know when a kid's ready for potty training?
So a couple of the prerequisites to know when a kiddo is ready is they wake up dry in their pull-up or diaper. And when they do go in their pull-up or diaper, like during the day when they're awake, they let you know that they went number 1 or number 2, depending on what it is.
It's like you have no choice but to pee.
Let's do it. Help.
No, I can't help you pee.
Help.
I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time! We can come play after. Hurry!
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
We can reset to half an hour now.
To make sure Jack Riley uses the potty regularly, they have been giving him lots of fluids and salty foods.
There it is. Let's go. All right, let's go. What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack.
Big prayer for your pee-pee.
Big prayer for your pee-pee. Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job.
What a big boy.
High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Welcome back. So that was the A word. I love this documentary. I hope that you guys are watching it. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch from the beginning with this little boy. They're charting his progress. He was diagnosed at 2. He's 3 now, where we are at where that episode was. But you can go back and watch from the period of time of when the parents were told, okay, you're starting ABA, but you got to go through this process, and you got to go through the initial intake, and it's, it takes a couple of weeks. And to hear the frustration from the parents about, we've heard so many great things about this, and now we have to wait, and are you kidding me? And as they deal with what it's like in the waiting, knowing your child's diagnosed, not knowing what's going to happen, that emotional turmoil that comes at that time, to then starting ABA and seeing, oh my gosh, this is a lot of hours out of my day. This is very taxing for me and my child. It's taxing for our family. What happened to our life? Where did it go? Seeing the progress that their child has, being excited about it, being thrilled when the therapists are there at the door, and then settling in for the long haul, because that's what it is, folks. It's a long haul, and you really get to not only see the emotional arc, but the arc of ABA. That, you know, you'll see these moments of just tremendous breakthrough where you go, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing that happens. And then there are all these little skills that you do that you go, where are we going with this? What's happening here? When is this all going to cohese together? Is it going to cohese together? Am I going to be able to have a conversation with my child? Am I going to know, you know, and it all unfolds as it unfolds. But this is not a 2-week, you know, this is Gilligan's Island. You know, you leave on the 3-hour tour and you stay for a while. That's what this is. So, you know, and you got to make peace with that. I always like to say that, you know, we set up our house, we're in for the long haul. And we thought we set up our house of how, you know, it was going to work for us with our particular configuration, because it works differently in every family. But I remember getting 2 years in and going, you know, I guess I have not accepted the fact that my kitchen counter is autism central. And I kept having a terrible time because I would compete with the therapist. The books would be there because I put them there, the log books, and I would be trying to, you know, do scrapbooking or work or, you know, make a lasagna, whatever it was on that kitchen counter, until it took 2 years in, and I was complaining to a friend and saying, you know, I just don't understand why I cannot get my kitchen counter clean. And she said, well, how does your kitchen counter function? And I said, well, you know, one part of it is supposed to be for autism, and the rest. And she said, oh, see, why are you fighting? Are you still floating on a river in Egypt? Would you give the counter up for autism? Is it not worth it for what you're doing? And I went, oh, okay, right. All right. This is me being passive aggressive with my kitchen counter. I got to make peace with this. My kitchen counter is for autism for the next, I don't know, however long. And why am I battling with them? Okay. They can have it, right? There are things about this that are hard, and it sounds ridiculous, but that was really hard for me to say, right. And we've been doing it for 2 years. Really quite the journey for a family. And of course, at this point, you know, it's the best of times, the worst times, toilet training, you know, because once you get it, oh, it's different. They're different, you're different, life is different. Once you move past the diaper phase, it's different. But it's not easy while you're moving through it, right? I will say that watch some of our episodes where we've covered the toilet training, because we go into the whole, you know, figuring out how, you know, when to set the time for each child, because it's different for every child, and how to have a non-reaction when they have an accident, but how to have a big reaction when they do it properly. But it's an amazing time. It's a huge, huge milestone, and really changes everything from the future on down. I mean, I remember being at that point and going, oh my gosh, what if we don't get toileting? And I think I've told this story before. My son's taller than the average child. I have a brother who's 6'7". I'm tall, my husband's tall. So my child, you know, the doctor would joke with us and say, you know, he's the tallest 2-year-old in California. And he might have been, I don't know. But he was tall. And so we had car seats that he had outgrown. You know, there's a level that they're supposed to not go beyond. And he was taller than every car seat that we'd ever gotten. So we had to get these huge Britax seats that were just expensive, and they were big, but they were safe for our tall child, and had the 5-point harness that was going to be able to hold him for a really long time. And I remember we went and bought the first one and realized we really needed a second one for our life, and, you know, it was going to break the bank and everything. I went back, I called the store and said, I'm coming back to get the car seat, and I couldn't get my child. He was a sensory, mess on that particular day, and I couldn't get him while I was doing the transaction, and they were installing the car seat into the seat, and we took the old seat out, and we were in a parking lot in Los Angeles, and I needed to listen to them, I needed to help them, and my child was just melting down, and I needed to be able to keep him in one place and get him happy. And the old car seat was sitting there, right next to the car. He was in no danger, and I was right there with my foot touching the car seat. But I gave him, I don't even remember what it was, but it was a toy that he found really exciting and that he loved. But I had to put him in the car seat, and it's sitting by the car, and I had to lock him into the 5-point harness so that we could get the car seat in. And the girl who was helping to do all this and negotiating all of it said, "Oh, you just can't get him to calm down." And I said, "Well, he was just diagnosed with autism, and we're sorting it out, but he clearly has some sensory issues." And she said, "Oh, well, I've got a really good friend who I helped to take care of their son who has autism, and he's doing great. He's just doing fabulously." And I said, "Really?" And it was that thing where I was like, "Tell me, because we just newly got diagnosed, and I don't know what our expectations should be. I really, didn't know anything about ABA, didn't know." I said, "Tell me, what does doing really great mean?" And she goes, "Well, he's 15 and he's still in diapers, but, he's not throwing his poo anymore." And I just started to cry. I was like, that's doing great? That he's going to be 15 and he's going to be in diapers? Because you immediately go there, right? We've all been there. And so this child was doing great, and I thought, that's the best thing that I can hope for, is that he's going to be 15 and in diapers, but he's not going to be throwing his poo anymore. And I just cried. Now, I know that there are some of you who are watching that seems like that would be a positive thing. It's all perception, and it's all a sliding thing. But I want you to know that whatever age your child is, and this is something that I found out, that I did not know on that day, that all children can be toilet trained, all of them. That there doesn't ever have to be another 15-year-old in diapers. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that you messed up. What I'm saying is, you haven't gotten the right help in to help you yet. And it does get harder. The older that a child gets and the bigger they are, the harder it gets, and the longer that they've been doing it one way. But it's still possible. And every child can be potty trained. There doesn't have to be any 15-year-old in diapers, seriously, unless there is a medically mitigating circumstances, right? Which is an entirely different thing. So, wherever you are in the toileting, and again, not easy, but doable. Absolutely doable. We had Angela Persicki in a couple of weeks ago, and she had made that comment about speaking in front of a group of parents, and they were saying, is toilet training possible? And that everybody on the team was like, "Oh yeah, toilet training. We know how to do toilet training. Of course, we know how to fly." And that's what it seemed like to the parents. And I know, because I was on that page one day where I was like, "Really? No, seriously?" And the first time that I was with somebody and said, "Are we going to be able to toilet train?" And they went, "Oh, absolutely. We'll get that done, and it will be fairly quick. It'll feel like an eternity while it's happening, but when it's over, you got it. And then you move on to bigger stuff, because you can't even dream, can you, when you're still in the diapers. But once the diapers go and the accidents go, you move on to bigger fish. So watch the A Word. We'll keep tuned with Jack Riley as he becomes the captain of his own destiny and doesn't need diapers anymore. Quite an adventure for his family to be on. But check them out. They're on their own YouTube channel. You can be watching the whole thing there, and we'll keep checking in with Jack Riley to see how things are going. But I do love this series. It gives me a great deal of hope, and I hope it does for you guys as well. Hey, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to address the question of the day. And we asked you guys, what does your child do that you brag about? So I haven't gone into Facebook yet. I hope you've surprised me with a ton of different answers, things that you want to brag about if you haven't done it yet. It's an open season. Brag away. We'll be back after these messages.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz, and once you pass that quiz you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. And it's time of day when we look at your answers to the question of the day. Our question today, I'm grinning from ear to ear because I love the question. It was, what does your child do that you brag about? And so we've got a bunch of answers here. I'm not going to get to all of them, and I apologize, but we'll do a lot of them. So someone says, he'll look me in the eye now and give me a big hug. You gotta love that. Another person who says he's a funny kid and is great at drawing. Brag on him lots. Well, we will. And I know you do too. Another person who says yoga. How fabulous is that? You know, we've had Sue Cho in the studio before. Sue is one of our clinical supervisors who goes around the world. If you're doing a workshop, she comes and trains your team and helps the family. And she's like super nanny for autism and jets all over the the world. And she recently got her certification that she's a yoga instructor too, because she's always loved yoga. And she said, I wanted to be able to teach this to my kids because it helps them to center themselves and to keep themselves calm and self-regulation. So you got to love that. Another person who says, my daughter will give me a kiss on the cheek and say, bye, Daddy, as I'm leaving for work. Love that. Another person who says, although he's nonverbal, he can read at 4 years old. He's very smart. Gotta love that. Another person who says, everything is a miracle, but I really love to hear him say the Lord's Prayer every night and all the facts about animals that he repeats. Another person who says he's 4 and extremely intelligent. Another person says he asks if I'm going to work and understanding it, that she's going to work. Somebody says, that their child has amazing memory, that his memory is wonderful. Another person who says he sings, dances, smiles, and laughs and spreads joy everywhere he goes. Yet another person who says she loves music and learned how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the piano. Love it. Math and music are very interrelated, and it's a great thing for a lot of our kids to play musical instruments. Okay, another person who says she's exceptionally inquisitive and considerate. I love that. On the first snow last year, she was up at 5 a.m. shoveling for all of our elderly neighbors. Oh my gosh, that's absolutely wonderful. I love that. Okay, I want to go to one of the other, because there's 3 different places now that you guys post your answers. Okay, what does your child brag about? Somebody who says the list is long. He's an amazing drummer, a great speaker in large settings. He never gives up and is willing to trust about anything. He loves his Nana. He cares about animals, and most important, he is kind and feels empathy for others when they are sad or in pain. Thanks to Card, the list is long because of Card. Oh, I absolutely love that. Truly wonderful. I'm liking that. Okay, another person who says he can figure out where to go on the computer that I can't. He can tell me how. No one shows him how to play games. He just does. Isn't that amazing? I remember early on, my son, before he ever even knew what a mouse did, went over to my computer and changed all the configurations and made it bigger. Like all the letters and all the icons were bigger. And it took me 2 years to find somebody who could change it back. Like how, and they even said when they said, oh, well, it's this, that, the other thing, he went into this file, and I'm going, wait, he was like 2.5. What, are you kidding me? And I said, oh, it must have been a coincidence. And somebody was like, no, I don't think so. That's hard to do. Anyway, okay, another person says their ABA team, that they want to brag on their ABA team, that they rock. I can brag because of them leading my kids in the right direction and making me a member of the team with a purpose. Yes, that's exactly, we want to be on the team, right? And we got to get the tools, and we have to have a purpose. And so I'm so glad that you got a team that's allowing you to be that person on the team. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Another person who says she has a big heart, loves animals and nature, and is a kind and a beautiful singer. All of our kids, they're unique in their own way, and we need to brag on them more because it does us good, does it not? Okay, so wait, I gotta scroll down here. I'm going to yet another place, see what you guys have. Okay, what does your child do that you brag about? Somebody wrote in, learned 3 languages. That's absolutely amazing. Another person who says, my son looks into your eyes and kisses me. That's a wonderful thing. I love this one. Has a black belt in Taekwondo and is working towards his 2nd degree black belt. Determination. Absolutely love. Because look, there's a lot of things that we could focus on a daily basis, right? and we talk about some of the stuff that's on the rough side, the financial end of things, and how difficult things are. And when your child's just going through a rough patch, and when you're getting that challenging behavior and they're pushing the limits, right? There are days when this is stinking hard. So anytime we have an opportunity to celebrate, it's worthwhile, and we should, and we can, and we do. All right, there's more, but it's time for us to take a break. When we come back, we're going to do our cognition tip for the week, so stick with us.
Well, we have developed a protocol for assessing behaviors in children with autism. And basically, the kids come out into two broad areas, and sometimes it's a mixture of the two. Some of the children we see we would call wandering. They haven't learned the skills of knowing that you're supposed to stay close to mom or dad, walk next to them, not walk off on your own and just wander off, or stop and look at things and not notice that mom or dad has kept going and turned around the corner and are now out of sight. Typically, developing children have what we call stranger anxiety, and it seems to be have a biological basis, and they learn to stick very close to mom and dad, especially at a very young age. Kids with autism are much less likely to show that sort of thing, and so we see this wandering behavior more often in young children with autism than in typically developing kids. So that's one group, is what we call the wanderers. And then there's another group of kids that kind of bolt or elope. And these are children who typically do it for a reason. There's a goal. Sometimes that is when we try to get them to do tasks that they don't like doing, they run away from us. Other kids, when we're not providing attention, they run away to see if we will react to their running. And other kids will run to gain access to what we call tangible items. And sometimes that is just running to get to the playground, like typically kids would do, but doing it, more intently, oftentimes not watching, not when they cross the street, could run in front of a car. And then also we sometimes see kids bolting for tangible items that are kind of unusual, that the children with autism often have unusual interests. And so we may have a child with autism who is bolting to pick up an unusual looking rock, or to go to the elevator and press and stim on the buttons. We had one little guy that would go to the soda machine, and big, fancy colored lights behind it, and he'd go and tap on it and look at it and listen to it and engage in self-stimulatory behavior on that particular object. But that was when he ran away to that. And so we've developed a set of procedures for looking at the kids, starting with a descriptive assessment, where we have them walk along a prescribed route, and sometimes we bait the prescribed route with things that might tempt a child to run away to get to. Sometimes we give them demands to see if, while we're walking with them, if we're telling them to do things, tuck in your shirt, comb your hair, are they more likely to bolt to get away from those tasks we're asking them to do. And so we've developed this set of walks that help us to determine, are these children just wandering and don't know when they should stop with us or walk with us? And then we have a set of treatments that are matched to the function or the purpose of the child's elopement or wandering or bolting. The treatment that we prescribe then is a very skill acquisition based treatment to teach the child that they need to stay within arm's length of the adult they're walking with, and we have specific procedures for doing that training. If the child tends to be a bolter, then we do a functional analysis to understand why they're bolting, what they're bolting to get, what is the goal or outcome that is reinforcing the behavior, and then we develop a specific intervention to address that function or that purpose.
I would imagine, though, that the assessment that you do, those directed walks, are things that are a controlled environment and really need to be done by professionals. Is that true?
Yes, and that's where we're at right now, and we start with that. We develop the treatment. We teach the child when it's safe to go and do things, when it's safe to move away from the adult. And then we train the parents to implement the procedures. And over time, we want to get so the child's elopement is under appropriate, what we would call stimulus control. They're doing it at the right time when they have signals to tell them it's safe to move away from mom or dad, but when it's not, that they need to stay close by. For example, one of the first children that we worked with bolted whenever she saw a dog. She just loved dogs, and her training went so that gradually we would expose her to different things that she would run away for, and the dog was the kind of final test case where she would have to walk about a quarter of a mile, walk right by a dog, go back to her starting point, and then we would say to the signal, now it's safe to go and see the dog. And we arranged so that that would occur in a safe location, inside a fence, and make sure it's a safe dog to be around. But to teach them that, yes, sometimes it's okay to run and go see a dog, and sometimes it's not, and here's when it is appropriate, and here's when it's not appropriate, and teach those skills, and then teach the parents to be able to implement that protocol.
We hear a lot from parents who give up. They feel like they're never going to be able to stop a child from eloping, and we always like to give them with hope. What kind of success do you have?
Sure. We recently pulled together the data from about a dozen cases, and the average reduction in elopement was about 95%. In all cases, we were able to reduce elopement by at least 85%. So in the vast majority of cases, we can greatly reduce this. In some cases, reduce it to zero, but in the most cases, reduce it to a great deal and make it much more manageable for parents.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That was Dr. Wayne Fisher. We had the opportunity to sit down and talk with him. He was so gracious to give us his time when we recently attended the ABAI conference in Seattle. Wonderful, wonderful conference. It was just thousands of BCBAs, board certified behavior analysts. And you know, honestly, can we talk? You know, if you had said to me 7 years ago, you're going to get excited about being in a convention center full of board certified behavior analysts, I just would have said, huh? I would have had no idea what that meant, but it was really exciting to see all these people. And by the way, a good half of them do not work with children on the autism spectrum. In fact, one of the people that I saw speak, and I wish I could think what his name was, but he was from Boys Town. And he was a gentleman who stood up and it was part of a, you know, they would have these sessions where there would be 3 or 4 speakers in a row, and somebody would host it. And they were talking about autism, the speakers, and this guy got up and he said, you know, I'm a BCBA, I don't work with the autism population. You know, and then he went on to say some things that were really exciting, that I really thoroughly enjoyed listening to, even though he didn't work with the autism population, because they work with ABA, applied behavior analysis, and this idea that we can change behavior. And I'm always saying to you guys, it isn't just for children on the autism spectrum. ABA was not invented for autism. It was not invented as an autism intervention. It is a science of behavior, excuse me, and can be used for lots of different circumstances in lots of different ways. And it can change our behavior. It can change your children on the spectrum, on the spectrum's behavior. It can change children who aren't on the spectrum's behavior. It can change the behavior of the people that you work with. But these are tools that we have to use. And of course, we always talk about principle number 1. In order for any behavior to happen again and again and again, it has to, in some way, be reinforcing. So that's the good side and the bad side. And what we talked about with Dr. Wayne Fisher was elopement and wandering. For our kids that just take off, is there anything more terrifying in the world? And yet we know that if we follow the rules of ABA, that for every behavior, there is a reason, there's some sort of payoff, and figuring out what the function of the behavior is step 1 to being able to change the behavior, to effectively intervene and reconfigure things so that the child doesn't need to engage in that behavior anymore if it's a challenging behavior like elopement and wandering, or, you know, in the cases of things that that we want them to be able to do, like communicate to us and say, Mom, I'm going to go over there. Is it okay? You know, how to increase that behavior. And ABA can help us with both of those things. So really exciting to talk to Dr. Wayne Fisher, quite an expert in the field, and we're grateful to him. We have many more ABAI interviews that we're starting to disseminate to you and that we'll be showing in the coming weeks. So that's just one of the many very exciting interviews that we were able to do. I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to go to an ABA conference, whether it's the international one, where there are literally thousands of BCBAs, or if you go to a more local one. They have, you know, check out online and you'll see that they have smaller ones around the country and around the world. Maybe there's one in your neck of the woods that you could go to. Very fascinating. And parents are allowed. It's not a professionals only. There were parents that were there, not enough of them, I will say. I was surprised, but I never knew I could go to it, so, you know. But I'm telling you now, you can go, and I encourage you to go and listen and hear about research that's being done. It's just fascinating is what it is. Okay. It is time for our cognition tip of the week. I want to also remind you, don't forget that at 11 o'clock we're being joined by Kerry Magro. He is the young gentleman he does Kerry's Corner. You can find it on Autism Speaks YouTube channel for their Autism Speaks videos. And he is just delightful. He's on the spectrum, and he goes to different events and see how people celebrate, in particular, Light It Up Blue, but other things as well. He did a really fascinating piece on the 50 Cent controversy that I think is really worth watching. So in any case, he'll be with us at 11 o'clock, Skyping in, so we look forward to that. In the meantime, it is time for our cognition tip of the week, and I wanted to talk to you particularly today about teaching cause and effect with our children. If it sounds like today, I looked later on at the schedule today and I was like, oh, I'm going to tell people to watch a lot of TV today, because I told you to watch the Olympics with your kids, because it can be very exciting and educational for them and help them to want to do the motor things that they do in the Olympics. And now I'm going to encourage you to watch programs like America's Funniest Home Videos, because when we work in the cognition area, one of the things that we want to teach is cause and effect. So you're always looking for circumstances where you could really have an educational moment, right? We talk about taking these moments out of time and showing the children something that's happening and demonstrating to them how they can use this newfound skill, right? Well, America's Funniest Home Video is a great way in the beginning to teach cause and effect, because they show end-to-end videos where there's some sort of thing that happens, some sort of climax to the video. And one of the things that we did with my son, and we love that show. He sits and giggles himself silly. But we would tape it, DVR it, and we would sit there with the remote, and the video would start, and you'd see the cat that starts to do something, and the dog runs by the cat, and the cat starts to do something, and we would pause it right there. And we would say to my son, what just happened? And he would say, the dog ran by. And we would say, what do you think's going to happen now? And, he would go, I don't know, and we'd say, well, guess, what do you think? There's even a game that they play on America's Funniest Home Videos where they do this with two audience members. They bring them up and they start to show a video and they pause it and say, what do you think's going to happen? This, or this, right? Well, you can do that with every single video that they have with your child. You pause it and go, what do you think's going to happen? And everybody in the family can say, well, I think that this is going to happen. I think that that's going to happen. But getting into the idea that something happened and something else happens as a result of it. Sometimes you can predict it, sometimes you can't, right? But there's a cause and effect to things. And again, if we want for a behavior to happen again and again and again, we want to make it reinforcing. Well, this is also an ideal time to be talking about humor and for a child to see that other people are laughing. And it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable and it's good family time. It's a great family game to play, and they do start to learn cause and effect. Now, if you do this lesson in skills, learning about cause and effect, you'll see that there are prerequisites that you never want to just start with. There are certain skills that a child needs to have before you can start to work on cause and effect. And, certainly putting things in sequence. Well, this happened, this happened, this happened is going to help them to be successful when working on cause and effect. But check out watching America's Funniest Home Video. It's available all over the internet now, and you can get it on Netflix, and it's on so many channels if you have cable, and it's on Sunday nights. So you can, and Tom Bergeron is great person who gives a lot of his time and energy to autism, and was actually honored last year by Autism Treatment Today as their Person of the Year, because he's been such a wonderful spokesperson for autism. So check it out. It's a really good way to do cause and effect that's really fun with your child. And then in real life, then you could be watching something and, you're sitting in the car waiting for a stoplight and you see somebody and you don't have the opportunity to pause it, but you can be saying to your child, oh, they just did this. What do you think's going to happen? Right? So you bring it into what they call in vivo in real life. But start with America's Funniest Home Videos. It'll be a good time. Very reinforcing. Okay, we're going to take a break. We've got another ABA interview for you, and we'll be back in a few minutes, but don't forget that Kerry Magro will be joining us at the top of the hour, so stick with us.
Behavior guy.
And why are you known as the behavior guy?
I sort of adopted that moniker after working with parents and teachers who always referred to me that, well, the behavior guy's coming into the classroom, behavior guy's coming to the house today, so might as well own it. But I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. Facebook page is facebook.com, and I think it's /behaviorguy2, and then, but the website is behaviorguy.com, and it's sort of an information portal for people interested in applied behavior analysis, parents, teachers, students, whoever.
You have worked for a period of time with kids who have behavior problems that don't necessarily have autism, correct?
That's correct. I actually got my start in special education with typically developed children, many of whom had diagnoses like oppositional defiant, conduct disorder, ADHD. So indeed, applied behavior analysis is just a science of human behavior. It happens to be the science of human behavior that informs effective autism treatment, but that is one small tail of the spectrum for which behavioral principles apply.
So a lot of our parents don't know how effective it is for kids who aren't on the spectrum. When you would use this for kids in the classroom, they're having those behavior problems. How effective was it?
Very effective. It really depends on implementation, and that's the hardest thing, is getting everybody on board and following through, and that's a tough challenge for a practitioner, is to get teaching the skills to the parents and teachers. That was something I always focused on. So, my role has always been not to directly provide services to the child, but to teach parents how to implement these procedures on a daily basis, because they're with their children 24 hours a day, to give teachers the tools that they need to understand how to assess behavior, how to implement effective teaching skills, effective classroom management skills, so that they're always effective. So it's parent training and teacher training, and giving everybody new skills all around,
And now you're doing a lot of training of behaviorists, yes?
I do. Actually, I work for the Florida Institute of Technology. We have an online professional development program for individuals who may have degrees in other related fields and want to get that core course content for board certification. So I am a lead co-instructor for that program, and work with the students in helping them understand the concepts and working with them to gain the skills that they need for board certification.
Welcome back.
Well, science is fundamental in treating autism. Currently, there are over 400 treatments for autism, most of which are not scientifically validated. So it's absolutely overwhelming for parents to make very critically important treatment choices for their children. And science can be the shining light to help parents differentiate between those interventions that give their kid the best opportunity for success versus those that could cause harm or not necessarily lead to any type of beneficial treatment outcome.
We're always talking about being efficient and effective on the show. And, if it's not science-based, you're not going to know that it's efficient and effective, right? And as a parent, do you not agree?
I don't want to waste a minute of my time, nor do I want to waste my resources or my funds in pursuing treatments that aren't effective.
We talk a lot about ABA. I imagine that since you're a science-based organization, that you talk about ABA from time to time as well.
Absolutely. Currently, applied behavior analysis enjoys the largest body of scientific support. So ASAT's mission is to disseminate scientifically validated information about autism treatment, currently applied behavior analysis enjoys the most support.
If somebody wants information, and people want information all the time, where could they go to learn what you guys know?
We're partial to our own website, of course, at asatonline.org, and individuals can sign up for our free newsletter at asatonline.org/sign up. It's a quarterly newsletter. It has book reviews, article synopses, clinical corner, consumer information. It has a variety of information that could really help parents, teachers, consumers really become the most savvy, sophisticated consumer they could possibly be, which is our goal.
Do you guys take apart some of the science that gets debated? Because sometimes I look at a study and I have no idea. Do you guys kind of give us a layman's perspective of it? Do you ever do that?
Absolutely. We actually just started a column called Focus on Science, where we try to help our readers understand what the peer-reviewed process is like. Oftentimes, individuals, they talk about a research, but it's not published research. So we really want our consumers to be able to understand what it means to be peer-reviewed, and also to understand that 5 different studies replicating the same type of finding is much more valuable information than one person who might actually benefit financially from their findings. So we really want to provide consumers with information about how to really understand the power of different research findings. But I have to say, though, that it saddens me that parents of kids with autism have to be in this position where they have to work so hard. No other parent group has to work so hard to access treatments for their kids.
I agree, and I'm sure you do too. As a parent, what got you involved in this organization?
I believed in science and autism treatment, and David hooked me in, and they needed help, volunteers, so it just snowballed from there. The people who are on the board of ASAT have a wealth of knowledge, and they volunteer their time. It's the treatment summaries that on the website are so helpful to parents. It's an amazing website that's free. I mean, parents don't have to pay any to access this information.
We've been talking a lot today about the transition time and how it's something that we all need to be paying more attention to. But I'm sure, mover and a shaker like you'll tell us all when you figure it out.
Yeah. I haven't figured it out yet.
A generation of families 15 years ago that had newly diagnosed children are the generation of parents today who are really trying to develop services for adults, young adults with autism.
You guys are going to have to be pioneers twice.
And we didn't have access to ABA 15 years ago. My son didn't receive early intervention, so it's very different today, but we're still advocating as we have done for how many years. So
asatonline.org, and the newsletter is asatonline.org/sign up.
And it's all free.
Facebook page as well.
Oh, Facebook. So they need to go and like your Facebook page.
Yes. We have thousands of fans.
Okay, wonderful. So nice to talk to both of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All great information from ABAI. There were so many people there, so many people to talk to. And again, we have more of those interviews coming up for you in the coming weeks. Also, we mentioned Joey Travolta earlier, and that he has been on the show. You can watch the interview that we did with him. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson and I interviewed him a couple of months ago. You can watch that on YouTube. But we wanted to show you, I mentioned that he did the Inclusion Films Camp with ACT Today, and I can't get enough of this video, just loving it. This is the difference that can be made with children. So take a look at Joey Travolta's inclusion camp that they recently finished.
ACT Today has partnered with Cox Communications to bring inclusion films to San Diego. Led by Joey Travolta, Inclusion Films teaches filmmaking to developmentally disabled children.
It's a practical film camp where we take them through the process of making a film. And each group, we split them into 3 groups, and they're each responsible for making a short film together as a group. How many people like animation in this group?
This is a wonderful opportunity for children to build their self-confidence, to develop new friendships, and it's also an opportunity for their siblings to come and to enjoy the company of other peers in this really wonderful, fun setting.
Okay, so you know what time it is?
One time!
Yeah!
Communications has years of supporting the community. We believe in giving back to the communities we serve, and military, youth, and education are our 3 pillars. And so this really matched up with everything that we're about and what we're trying to do to give back to the San Diego community. And so we were thrilled to meet up with Act Today and Inclusion Films and to have this wonderful synergy. 3 organizations really trying to move towards a common cause.
All right, we ready?
There you go, got it. Mark.
Okay, you'll be talking to me, okay? So tell me your name, say my name is. In the past, we've done the Junior Apprentice, which was a takeoff on The Apprentice, the Really, Really, Really Late Show, which is a takeoff on The Tonight Show. And this year, we're doing a combination of 60 Minutes and Entertainment Tonight called 30 Minutes Tonight.
Okay, good. So now you understand what an improv is. You guys get the idea what an improv is? To go with the flow of something, especially in the action.
My son Elijah, he's into movies and he's into music, and so this program might bring out his particular skills.
Amazing. You're like a professional animator.
Every single person here we've met has been so kind, loving, and caring. They've given Nicholas the opportunity to be himself and be around people who have the same passion and interest as he does.
What is it you learned with Ultimate? What did you learn?
That sewing is kind of trendy.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate. And when they collaborate, they come up with a product that everybody can see they're a part of something. They become a community, they become a family. When you make a film, you really become a family.
Are we having fun at film camp? Yeah! You know, we are close to Hollywood. Yep. And Hollywood is always looking for young talent like this.
Autism is an epidemic and is not going to get any better anytime soon. Families are struggling to pay the bills, to put food on their table, let alone provide services for their children. And Act Today is a vehicle of support for these families by helping them get access to life supports that they couldn't otherwise have.
My experience in film camp has been great, and I just really love how all you guys decided to bring us together. What I learned here, I learned to animate, how to operate the plot board. I learned about the animation and filming and editing.
Making friends.
Making new friends and acting.
Meeting new friends. You can be anything you want to be.
It's amazing what our kids can do when we give them the opportunity and surround them with people who believe in them, who understand some of the challenges that they're facing, and are committed to helping them to overcome any of the disabling aspects of their disorder to get to where their true talent lies. And that's what Joey Travolta talks about doing. And so exciting to see these kids blossom, to be social, to learn new skills, to have that opportunity for them to be excited. I well up when I see these kids talking at the end and talking about how amazing it is and the friends that they make. Really amazing. I said it before, I'll say it again. Joey Travolta is just fabulous. He's the real deal and an amazing gentleman. And, this camp was in San Diego, and it was to support families who have they're in the military and have a child on the spectrum and the siblings of those children on the spectrum. So, but Joey has camps all over. He has them throughout the United States and Canada. I know they just finished or just are getting ready to finish a camp in New Jersey this summer. So take a look at inclusionfilms.com. Go there, take a look, and see if they're coming to an area near you. And in a lot of places, they've done the work to make it possible for the funding to be available through the state so that it's not on the backs of the parents. It's just an amazing thing that he's doing. True truly life-changing. Really have to send our kudos out to Joy Travolta and to Cox Communication and to Act Today for having the drive to make these kinds of things happen. Truly remarkable. Gives you hope, lifts the load a little bit, because this thing is heavy, right? And to know that there's other people working on it makes it very exciting. Hey, in just a couple of minutes, we are going to be joined by Kerry Magro. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's going to tell me if I'm not. He is a young man who does a video blog, shall we say, called Kerry's Corner for Autism Speaks. And it's just delightful, absolutely delightful. Kerry is on the spectrum, and he's going to talk with us about that and about how he came into this job and what kinds of things that he covers. And we're going to ask him specifically about he recently had a reaction that he videotaped about the 50 Cent controversy. So we're going to ask him about that. If you have questions that you would like to ask Kerry, you can. If you're watching us on autism-live.com and it says Shannon is answering right now, then that means that the question box is open and active and you can participate. You don't have to log in. You don't have to give anybody your address, your email, your credit card number. It's just all free. It's active right now. Just type away, hit enter, and it shows up magically on my screen, and I can ask Kerry whatever question you would like. If you're watching and it says rebroadcast, then you can still answer those questions via email, and we are going to be talking to him via Skype. You can be phoning in, you can be Skyping with us, all of those different things. But we hope that you will participate with us if you're watching live. So stick with us. Kerry Magro is going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes after these messages. Well, today we're going to be talking about how to teach children to recognize other people's emotions. Why is that important to teach kids with autism spectrum disorders?
Children with autism have difficulty recognizing other people's emotions, and we as people generally do things or don't do things based on how other people react. And so it's really important to teach our children how to recognize the emotions of others so that they know how to behave or not behave. And so it's really important too that they start to pick up on how other people feel, because it will determine should they continue acting a certain way around children in a play group, or should they do things to make their parents happy or other family members happy. So it's very important that they become aware and recognize what different emotions look like.
So how do we go about teaching it?
So basically, we generally start with trying to recognize other people's emotions by doing it through a photograph or in a book or through pictures, because that's something that's a lot more salient or easier to identify than a person that might be right in front of me, because maybe there's a lot of distractions going on, or that everybody's going to express their emotions in a different way. But then you want to make sure that you're taking the time to go into real life, pointing it out, whether it's contrived, for example. So I say, hey, you two over there, I want one of you to be happy, and then I'm going to ask the child to see if they can recognize that emotion, because maybe something else is going on that's also making them happy, like you handed them a present. You want to make sure then that you start fading away from the contrivedness of it, so as it's actually occurring in real life, because a lot of times our kids have difficulty generalizing, and just because you teach it from a photo, or I sit here and I say, how do you feel, doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to transfer the skill. It's one of the primary deficits of kids on the spectrum is generalization. So it's very important that we're teaching it at different levels, because ultimately everything that we are teaching them, we want them to be able to use in everyday life. So that eventually we even lead up to, hey, if somebody's on the playground being mean to you, how is that going to make you feel? And they might say, well, it's going to make me angry. Well, what can you do about that in that situation? And then also eventually teaching them, this is what you can say or do in that situation. But again, rehearsing that just in having a conversation is not necessarily going to mean that the child is going to start exhibiting that skill.
Right.
So what I might do then is, for example, let's say we're going on the playground, and I know that it is in the past been a time that the child might get mad at somebody because maybe a child on the playground often always wants a turn. Right. And so I might say to the child before we go on the playground, hey, if someone takes the ball away from you, what might you say or do? And so then I'm kind of priming them or coaching them before the situation occurs. Mm-hmm. That's still a prompt, but it's a step towards generalizing the skill into everyday life. Right. But the goal then would be eventually that I don't have to remind them of that before the situation occurs. Right. They will have the scenario occur to them and then immediately know the correct reaction or response that they need to give.
Right. And I can't say it enough. It builds on so many other things. Mm-hmm. Being able to recognize your own emotions, taking other people's perspectives, understanding where they're coming from. So a really worthwhile thing to work on.
Mm-hmm. And absolutely, and especially too because it emerges so early. Yeah. But it continues to develop for quite a long period of time too. Yeah. So yes, a lot of skills that build on from recognizing emotions of others and also your own emotions as well.
Great. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Vince Redman, and I'm one of the regional directors for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. There's lots of things that are different working with teenagers than working with the elementary or early intervention kids. Puberty. I mean, the number one thing you have teenagers where their bodies are changing and their expectations are changing, their interests are changing. They start getting interested in boys and girls. They start getting interested in what their other peers are doing. They start getting interested in, different fads that are going on. And plus, it depends on the level of severity within the disorder. You also have to be very careful that if you are a teenager, that they're not interested in certain things, meaning that they're still not interested in early intervention. They're not interested in like Barney or cartoons and Thomas the Train and those types of things, because they're not age appropriate anymore. Yet they still have that internal desire to be attracted to or to really like it. And I think that is just as important. But again, when we're looking at teenagers, there's a whole array based on the spectrum. But we're also looking at transitional living. They're learning. They have to start learning more self-independent skills. They're learning skills that are going to make them successful in school, at home, and at times when they're by themselves, to self-supervise. Can they make snacks? Can they make meals? Can they know how to turn on and off the TVs? Do they know how to use a telephone? Just on the top of my head, some basic skills that they need to know so that they can be able to be self-sufficient for certain periods of time. So, you have everything as sophisticated as social, boy-girl relationships and what's a fad, what's not a fad, what my friends think versus what my friends don't think, to very easy things to just, can they get to and from school? Can they, microwave some popcorn and can they use a telephone in a case of an emergency? So there's a wider range that when you're looking at teenagers, but it, to some extent there's similarities to early intervention, but it's a whole new world when we get into transitional skills and independent learning skills that are much different than when they were 5, 6, 7 years old. Now we're looking at 15, 16, 17, and the expectations on them are much different than they were when they were younger. So I think the programming changes, the expectations change, their cognitive ability changes. They should be also learning more advanced abstract learning inferences, deception, sarcasm, belief systems, being able to plan, strategize, problem solve, much more abstract situations than concrete situations that they learned at a very early age. So there's lots that go into when you're working with teenagers. It's a whole new ball game. It's like, to some extent starting over, because there's a new list of expectations, there's a new list of needs, and there's a new list of concerns and deficits that come forth. And we strategize for those differently, we look at those differently and individually, and we set a new plan for there. Motivating teenagers is always a challenge, because for what every one kid likes, another kid likes something else. But we try to motivate them with things that are age appropriate as well. We want to stay away from some of their early motivations, which might have changed. Again, primary, such as food, we want to, we necessarily don't want to do that. Again, early childhood preferences, like certain videos or certain cartoons or certain toys, oftentimes aren't mature enough, or they're not age appropriate anymore. So we have to look at all new things. Many social things that are socially acceptable now are very appealing to our teenagers. iPods, iPhones, video games, computer games, even computer websites such as YouTube and things of that nature are very reinforcing to our kids. Also, privileges. One of the things I think we always have to remember is giving our kids privileges is very reinforcing. Being able to choose what movie they have for movie night, what dinner is going to be made that night, 10 extra minutes on the computer, things of that nature, which we're really reinforcing, because it reinforces them to be independent. It reinforces them to want to do that again. And it's done in a way that we would do with any of our teenagers.
The Autism Special Interest Group was actually formed because we recognize a couple of things, really important things actually, that first of all, that there are a lot of parents and families out there who have children with autism who are looking for resources. And we wanted to be able to create a place where they could come to and find resources. Also, in ABAI, there are a lot of practitioners, and they would like guidance on, what are effective practices, what is evidence-based, what is not. And so the SIG sort of brought together that constituency. One thing that I think I'm most proud of as an organization, we developed something called the Consumer Guidelines. And the Consumer Guidelines are essentially guidelines for enabling consumers, parents, school systems, and other potential consumers. How do you identify who's a qualified practitioner? What should you look for to be able to identify that? And so the Consumer Guidelines is one of our our major projects where we've put those out there, and they've actually been revised 3 times, and there's a current revision in place right now. They're on our website at autismppsig.org, and they're also disseminated through a number of other sites linked in. If you go to Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies, ASAD, there are a lot of links to get those. They're currently in revision, and actually we just finished the second set of revisions. We're actually awaiting some feedback from a few more people, and if all goes well, sometime about August 1st, we should have the most recent revision, because that takes into consideration things like licensure in some states, revisions to the BCBA guidelines. We really cleaned them up and clarified them. But they're used in school districts all over the country to help. If you're a parent and they say, oh, that person can do ABA, well, can they really? Right. Do they have the experience? And how do you as a parent know when they say they can? What should you look for? And so we think that's a really critical resource.
All the information is free.
It's all free. There are research reviews there. There are interviews from leaders in the field. You can find interviews from Andy Bondi and from other, you can pick a name. We probably have them. All of the newsletters going back a number of years are available there. And also links to a lot of places as well. Links to like ASAD, I think you interviewed some people there. We share a lot of resources with the PPP-SIG, Parent Professional Partnership, Autism SIG, and ASAD. I think
that's a lot of letters.
It is. And it's one of the things, behavior analysts love acronyms.
We have jargon of the day every day, and we demystify, so you've given me more.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the really important things is that we do need to be able to speak in a language that makes sense to parents, and it's hard because I always joke, we're behavioral nerds. We really like our science, and that's why we have an effective treatment.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And as promised, we are going to be joined right now via Skype by Kerry Magro. Am I saying that correctly, Kerry?
You're saying the first name right. It's Kerry Magro.
Magro. I thought I had it wrong. Anyway, Kerry, I have to ask you to start with, can we have your permission to talk with you on the air and to be videotaping you?
You do have my permission, and you can record this.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, now we have to get through the formalities, right? But want to talk a little bit about you, Kerry, because you are 24 years old, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you are currently a full-time student?
Yep, I'm a second-year grad student at Seton Hall University for Strategic Communications and Leadership.
That's a mouthful,
It is.
but pretty
Get that.
impressive. But on top of that, you are also an advocate, an autism advocate. You wear a lot of different hats. Let's talk about some of the things that you do, because you do Kerry's Corner, which we
Yes.
mentioned before, and tell us a little bit about what Kerry's Corner is.
Kerry's Corner was an initiative that Autism Speaks wanted to do for the Light Up Blue campaign. I have been working with Autism Speaks for over about 3 years now, since my junior year of undergrad in 2010. And I started off as a blogger. And then as time went on, we started focusing more on video blogging, not only with Kerry's Corner, but with actually my own personal blog called My Autism, My Voice. So the idea of doing Kerry's Corner was just to focus on the third year of the Light Up Blue initiative for Autism Speaks, which happens during Autism Awareness Month for April. So we got involved with that, and Mark Serkin, who was actually on the show last week, and great guy.
Yes.
He was very, very influential in deciding how to put Kerry's Corner together. So it started in the second week of March, and we just went around to all the Autism Speaks events and spreading awareness for the events, and really just trying to engage the community and tell everyone to light up blue. And since then, we've kept Kerry's Corner going because there was a lot of positive feedback, so it's still going on today.
And in a little while, we're going to talk about the 50-cent edition that you did recently, but I want to talk about some of the other things that you do as well. You mentioned My Autism, My Voice. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. My Autism, My Voice was actually very, very funny. It started off September of last year. And honestly, I thought it was going to be my thesis project for for grad school. And it didn't end up going there, but My Autism, My Voice was an initiative I started to really try to spread my voice. And I guess the reason I try to spread my voice is because I was actually diagnosed with autism when I was 4, with pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. And through the blog, I thought that would be a great way to build my self-confidence, but also build my communication skills and my speaking skills. So I started off doing a daily video blog and putting it on the blog and posting it onto my YouTube channel. And it really gained speed. And then we just started focusing on a lot of different autism topics, everything from an early diagnosis to early intervention to more higher up for adults in regards to adult services and living independently and topics like that. So we've been doing that for a while. We just reached our 100th episode, which was very, very exciting.
Yes.
We did a tribute video to 100 advocates within our autism community making a difference, which went out to each one of them, and they loved it.
Oh,
and
that's wonderful. That's very exciting. But in addition to that, you also co-host a radio show, correct?
Yes, I actually got to be part of that initiative through My Autism, My Voice. I contacted a lot of different blogs when I was first starting off to try to get a better sense of what I'm trying to do, because I was clueless in the beginning. What I decided to do was I just sent out basically a template email to the top 100 autism blogs in the country, and just telling them my story, telling them a little bit more about me, and if I could get in contact with them. And one person in particular, his name is Paul Simmons. He has had this show called Hope Saves the Day Autism Radio, which has been around for about 2 years now. And he heard about my story and he wanted me to get involved. So I started pretty much a few months ago on being the co-host of Autism Radio. And it's a lot like My Autism, My Voice. We go through a lot of different autism-related topics and really just try to spread awareness. So I've been co-host for a few episodes now, and I really, really enjoy it.
And how can people find this radio show?
It is currently, the website for it is autismradio.org. And we have a weekly podcast every Monday at 8. So you can either the live stream of it goes up every Monday at 8, and then there is a podcast that is available for free on iTunes, which comes up about an hour or two later. So
okay, great. And you also are a blogger for Autism After 16, correct?
Yes, that was another fun initiative I got involved with. Quite recently, I've been really trying to build awareness for the adult community, especially adults with autism, because what I've noticed is that a lot quite recently is that the popular image of autism usually seems to come with children more than adults. It's really focused more on early intervention, and I tell a lot of people when I'm discussing this topic, if I Google autism, in the news, there's something called Google News, and you type in autism. What I see usually every day, because I try to keep up with the latest developments in the autism community, is I see about one or two adult stories with autism, and then about like 23, 24 kids with autism. So, I mean, I'm an adult with autism. I actually just celebrated my 20th year anniversary since my diagnosis with autism when I was 4. And I'm really trying to make people understand more about what adults need in regards to services and independence and living accommodations and everything. So Autism After 16 was a website I really got into. I was I was reading a lot of the articles just to build my information on adult services, and I got in contact with their Facebook page just randomly, just basically just like the other 100 blogs I mentioned, just really wanted to get involved. And then the editor was very optimistic that I could help, and I just jumped on board, and now I do a bi-weekly column every Friday. So
well, I just want to know, Kerry, how do you have time for anything else? If you're a full-time graduate student and you got all these other things going on, you're pretty busy, huh?
I usually tell everyone that most of it's completely like social media. So with that, I've grown a lot of abilities in multitasking.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I won't tell you how many times I'm doing a blog where I'm also like reading another story, and I'm just letting my fingers type away while I'm reading something else, or trying to keep up with my friends and like Skyping them and doing all this. So
so you're a great multitasker.
I've been trying to be.
Okay, pretty fascinating. We're going to take a little bit of a short break, and we're actually going to show a clip of some of the stuff that you do. And when we come back, Kerry, we're going to ask you about your early years with PDD-NOS and what it was like for you, because it's not every day that we get to talk to somebody who is an adult and is dealing with this. So there are a lot of questions that we have for you. So we're going to take a short break, but we're going to be back with Kerry in just a minute. But take a look at some of the work that Kerry does.
Hey guys, welcome back to my Autism My Voice. For this episode, I wanted to talk about when people assume that you want a cure. Now, this incident actually happened to me quite recently when there was a student who did an article about me, and in it, this individual said that I wanted a cure for autism. As many of you guys know already, I was diagnosed with autism when I was 4. And I've been doing a lot of autism advocacy for the community since that time. And one of the big things that a lot of young kids, especially a lot of young individuals who are my age, think is that when I'm spreading autism awareness, I'm looking for a cure. And that's not true at all. When I spread awareness for autism, I'm trying to really make people understand what autism is, try to accept autism in our society more, and also at the same time just hope for a better day through treatments and services. I think the whole cure thing is something that is a very heated topic within our autism community, and I feel like it's something that needs to be pushed aside, and we really just need to focus on the facts. We need to focus on the facts of autism. We need to focus on what causes autism, and we need to focus on the treatments so people can live and progress in the best way they can. So I think it's very, very important that when we are spreading autism awareness, we're teaching people to understand that autism awareness is not about trying to find a cure. In many instances, autism awareness is trying to find a better day for our autism community. It's to make people understand what autism is who are not in our community. And I think people need to understand that a lot more. And hopefully through this video, if we could spread it a little bit, maybe people will understand, because I don't necessarily think I would ever want a cure for autism. I think autism in many instances makes me who I am as an individual. So there is a debate. I really tried not to go into it, but that's how I see things. So, and let me know what you guys think, because I'm always willing to hear more opinions on the topic. So thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned for more episodes.
Our special guest right now is Kerry Magro, and that was him talking on his My Autism, My Voice blog. And Kerry, we can see why last year you received the 2011 Outstanding Individual with Autism Award. You're very eloquent, you're very good on camera, and you've got a voice that we hope that many people will listen to you.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, autism advocacy actually started off for me when I was in my high school senior year, actually. I just graduated high school, and I went to a school with kids with learning disabilities. It was a very private school, only 160 kids. And from what I remember at the time, I was trying desperately to get involved with scholarships and trying to receive as many scholarships as possible to focus on college. And one scholarship I actually got was through the Autism Society of America, who gave me the 2011 Outstanding Individual Award. They actually gave me a scholarship for college and let me go to their conference in Phoenix, Arizona in 2007. And from that experience, I, for the first time, met individuals such as myself with autism who were so eloquent and were trying to advocate for their needs every single day. And I just saw this as such a huge opportunity to just try to make my voice heard in the community and try to spread autism awareness for the better day for a lot of individuals out there, for the next generation of Kerry Magro, as I usually tell people.
Which is wonderful. And I know, I'm a parent. I have a 9-year-old who is on the spectrum, and I see somebody like you, and I think that most parents would be thrilled and proud to have you as a son. And I was sharing a story just a little while ago about when my son was just first diagnosed, and I had the opportunity to talk to somebody, and they were describing a 15-year-old who was still in diapers. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, is that, in those first few moments, is that what I have to hope for? But I think that people see you and individuals such as yourself, because you're by no means the only person with autism that has a voice, but it's a beautiful voice that you have, Kerry, and it lifts us all up and reminds us that this is a huge, big, wide spectrum, and that there are individuals on it, and that we need to embrace where everybody is. But Kerry, tell us a little bit about your early days, and what kinds of things did your parents see in you that led them to take you to get a diagnosis of PDD-NOS?
One of the biggest signs when I was growing up was until I was 2.5, I was actually nonverbal. And my parents, specifically through that, saw that there was a big need to get me diagnosed. But also at the same time, I was dealing with a lot of different sensory integration issues. Different sounds, different touches, different feels would make me feel very, very uneasy. There was a certain period of a time when I wouldn't go out of the house unless it was sunny, like no clouds in the sky, like no darkness, just complete sun. And that would only be when it wasn't like windy outside, because if I just felt a little bit of wind, I would go into a crazy panic, because I was one of the big things they also saw was just the repetitiveness. They knew that I loved having a routine and being in an environment that was very, very complacent to what I needed. So from all of that, from the nonverbal to the sensory integration to a lot of more difficulties as well, they just decided that it was time to get me diagnosed. And honestly, at the time, autism was just very still unknown. I mean, the numbers for autism back in the day were around 1 in every 500 individuals with autism in the early 90s, not 1 in 88 like we have today.
Right.
So people were still trying to figure out what autism was, and there weren't a lot of therapy options out there, but my parents were a big advocate in trial and error and tried to get me involved with as many therapies as possible and try to mix and match a little bit to see what worked. And I mean, I wouldn't be here without them. I really wouldn't be.
Kerry, do you remember when you were younger and you would go outside and you would feel the wind and what it would feel like that would be so disturbing to you? Or is it just something that your parents have talked to you about? Because it's always interesting to me what our kids on the spectrum remember.
Some of my earliest memories in regards to that kind of stuff is that, honestly, I kind of try to compare it to like different emotions and different thoughts I have today. I would kind of compare it to almost like if I had like a cut from like playing a sport or something like that, I would know the pain was there and I would be emotional to that. And it kind of felt like when I was a kid, honestly, if I felt a sound I didn't like or a light that wasn't good for my eyes or the wind or something like that, it would feel like a cut in many instances. Wow. It would just, the emotion would be there. And I was a very emotional kid because of it. Not only because I was nonverbal and I really couldn't communicate for myself, it led to a lot of just emotional issues, lashing out to try to get my emotions across because I couldn't communicate. And I didn't really know the best way to, because it just wasn't there at the time.
And in terms of how you are now, because we see you now, and you're a very articulate, intelligent young man, are there things that you struggle with now? And if it's personal and you don't want to share, you don't have to, but if there is something you want to share about things that you still have to overcome now, or do you feel like you're at a point where things are pretty smooth sailing?
It's definitely a mixed bag. I would definitely say that I am sailing smoother than I was when I was growing up. But at the same time, I still deal with communication issues, different social issues, and it's really difficult, honestly, because I mean, I've been dealing with social and communication issues ever since I was a kid, but I think over time I learned how to really just be able to understand that I am who I am, and that my individuality is really just going to understand that I'm going to go through different times where I'm going to have weaknesses, but I'm also going to go through different times where I have strengths and I progress and things get better for me. And I really try to keep a positive outlook on life, and there are some social communication things that still bother me today, but a lot of the sensory stuff went away, and motor skills, I still have a little bit of difficulty in regards to like hand movements and everything, but other than that, it's been pretty smooth.
Well, I got to tell you, Kerry, I'm grinning ear to ear here because you're describing social and communication issues, and I think everybody has them. And, we've only known each other through email and now this interview, and
and I have the opportunity to be emailing with people all over the world and doing these kinds of interviews, and I got to tell you that most of them don't do nearly as well as you have done in your communication and in the interview. So, you know, I love that you've set the bar very high for yourself, but I got to tell you, you're doing really a great job.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's been a long time coming, but I mean, I just try to take every day in stride, try to keep a positive outlook on life, because I think that's so important. And I really just hope for a better day for the autism community, and just try to push hope. I mean, one of my big things with the whole video blog and everything is that I have become a national speaker. When I started grad school, I won a scholarship through the National Speakers Association based on a keynote speech I did for an autism awareness event. And I really never thought about motivational speaking before that, but once my parents got me involved with the scholarship and said, you need to send this, I've just been going around the country for the past year now, talking about several different autism related topics, sharing my story and my experiences, and really just trying to give hope for individuals out there who are not seeing the potential that our autism community has, and that every single person we have in this autism community is a blessing, regardless if they're on the low end of the autism spectrum or the high end. We have so many different individuals that are going to spread hope and are just doing the best they can.
Kerry, I think you've got quite the career ahead of you as a motivational speaker. And if people wanted to book you to come and speak at their event, how would they go about doing that?
Currently, I'm in the middle of switching agents right now.
Okay. All right.
Everyone can contact me directly. I have my email address, which is just my name, Kerry Magro @gmail.com. I have a fan page on Facebook, which is just facebook.com/Kerry Magro 88. 88's the year I was born, and those are the two main ways you can get in contact with me. So.
Okay, great. Let's take a second to talk about the 50 Cent controversy, shall we? Because I watched your video blog about that and just thought it was so awesome, Kerry. So, you know, for people who are watching, and we've talked about it a lot here on the show, Kerry answered this. You had a response because 50 Cent made some comments on Twitter. We've talked about what they are, and I don't want to give any more attention to what he said.
Right.
But he made some negative comments. He ultimately apologized. And a lot of us weighed in on it and said things, you know, I said he needs to write checks to a bunch of autism charities, Autism Speaks included, and Holly Robinson's Pete's, the Holly Rod Foundation, and many more. But I really loved what you said. Can you kind of consolidate what your message was as a result of this media nightmare?
My reaction, I know there's been a lot of reaction in the news. My reaction was coming more as I really didn't know that much in the research of what was going out there with 50 Cent. I didn't know there was a lot of news stories about this. But more specifically with me, I was always a fan of 50 Cent. I grew up on listening to hip hop music and R&B, and I've been listening to 50 Cent ever since he came into music. And when I saw his Twitter comment, I actually directly saw his Twitter comment, and I saw what he said, and I couldn't believe someone with that much following, who can be scrutinized for even the smallest little thing you say, said something like that. Mm-hmm. With the numbers we have in our autism community today, and with how so many different individuals struggle with this autism every day, it was hard for me to see that. And I just wanted to do a response to let people know that this wasn't okay, and that he did have an opportunity to really take his following, because he has around 7 million followers on Twitter. He has that ability to go out there and apologize for his mistakes, and then also do an awareness campaign. I mean, we are dying for celebrities in the community to really try to branch out and help in regards to autism, because autism legislation is so big, and having celebrities behind us would be a great thing. So he could have did a little bit of good in that. I was appreciative he did apologize for his comments, but I think he owed us a little bit more than just that. And I did a video which has about 1,000 views now, which just discusses my thoughts as a fan and how it hurt me as just an autistic individual.
Yeah, and you also say this is an opportunity for all of us to further the discussion, and you know, that if we were all to take that energy, I love that you said, you know, all the anger that everybody felt, if we were to take that and channel that, how much good could come if we focused it in other ways. And I really appreciated hearing that, because as a mom, I get angry sometimes.
We all do.
And you know, and the anger is fine, but there are useful things that we can be doing that are positive things that are not so much in the anger. And I really appreciated hearing that from you. But Kerry, I think that you're remarkable. I think that you're wonderful, and I'm so glad that you find it so exciting to speak and that your voice is being heard, because you're a wonderful spokesperson for all of us.
Thank you so much.
And you know, and I really appreciate, you know, because as you say, you know, people get choices about what to do with what they have, and people can use them for betterment, or they can use them to tear other people down. And I am excited that you are on the right side of this discussion and in trying to create a better day, as you say.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to keep pushing and trying to do that every single day. And I love what you said. Just we really do need to channel some of our thoughts and try to push for positivity and togetherness, and just really try to build on community, because I know that's one of the big things we're trying to do right now between different autism organizations. We're trying to come together, especially with the new political campaign. And
we're a community that has lots of camps.
Yes.
And yet we all have one purpose, and so it's good when we can all set other things aside and be one. I agree with you. Kerry, what are your long-term goals? Like, do you want to go into politics? What do you want to do with your life? Because I'd vote for you, Kerry.
Well, I'd appreciate your vote.
What do you want?
Long term, I'm still weighing my options in many senses. I am currently also in the process of a lot of the stuff I'm doing right now. I'm writing 2 books and a short story. My short story is actually based on a experience I had consulting for a movie called Joyful Noise. And for people who don't know, Joyful Noise was a movie that came out this year, and one of the characters in Joyful Noise actually has Asperger's syndrome, and he's a teenager, and he's actually the son of Queen Latifah's character in the movie. And I got to consult because the character did have Asperger's, and they were trying to get as realistic as a portrayal as possible. So I actually got to do a rewrite of the character, and got to meet with the movie director over lunch one day in New York for about 3 hours, and just give him my thoughts and my ideas. And I actually got to go down to Hollywood last January to see the screening of the movie with all the stars there, and I got a credit at the end of the movie. So so my short story will be based on how theater has influenced my life, because one of the things I had growing up was being able to be on a stage. My parents knew that was one of the passions of mine, so that's really one of the ways I gained motivational speaking skills also, over 13 years of theater training over my life. So there's that, and then the 2 other books, one is going to be based on my college experience and helping individuals with learning disabilities, and then the other is actually a transcription of my blog, My Autism, My Voice. So I have a lot of stuff I'm doing right now. But
okay, you do. You certainly do. Well, Kerry, we are in Los Angeles, and I know we just missed you because you were in San Diego, but the next time you come back to Hollywood, will you let us know? Because we'll have you come into the studio. We can do a regular sit-down live in the studio with us. We'd love to do that. And who knows, maybe we can, you know, hook you up with some fun things going on here in Hollywood. But because that would be very fun. So the next time you're coming back, make sure that you let us know and keep us posted about things that you're doing, because we'd love to have you on whenever you've got some time.
Will do. And I'm a Laker fan, so I would love to down. So there's an added incentive there. So maybe I will.
All right. All right. If you're in town, you let us know. Kerry, want to thank you again and let everybody know there's all different places that they can see your stuff, but they can find your Kerry's Corner on the Autism Speaks YouTube channel. Can they also find my Autism, My Voice there as well?
My Autism, My Voice is actually through my personal YouTube channel at Kerry348.
Okay, Kerry348. Okay, and of course you can go to Autism at 16. We just had Caroline McGraw on last week, and we were encouraging people to go to Autism After 16, and that they can download the podcast for your Autism Radio Hope Saves the Day on iTunes for free. Love it.
Yes.
Kerry, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll look forward to hearing more good things from you.
Oh, just thank you so much for having me. It was great.
All right, you take care.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wonderful, wonderful young man. Oh my goodness, gives me so much hope. We're going to take a break and come back to finish out the show. Stick with us. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, the host of Skills Live, and in honor of Back to School, I've got a little project that you can do at home that will give your child a clear idea of what they're working for at school and help you to keep track of what they're doing. There are a couple of different elements to this project, and I want to show you first how it works and then how to do it yourself. So this element of the project stays at home. And what it says is, what are you working for today? So my son can look at this, and I like to give him 5 choices, but you can customize this for your child at whatever point they're at. 5 choices might be overwhelming to them, or they might need more choices, but you can put as many of these tags on as you want. And some of the things that I know that he likes that he might want to work for: video games, being able to swim after school, a toy. We like to get the little Happy Meal toy from McDonald's. You know, you can buy it without getting the Happy Meal. And he likes to work for Microsoft points. We're at that point in the game. And a play date. He likes to work for a play date. And these are Velcroed on so that I could switch them and put other things on. So this will hang in my kitchen, and each morning before he goes to school, he'll pick one and say, this is what I want to work for today. I made it colorful because he likes that kind of thing, but you could make it all in the same color if you wanted to do that. So he would pick this one off and say, I want to work for Microsoft points today, and this gets added to his little schedule. On the back of it, it just Velcros right on so that he can remind himself that's what he's working for, and his teacher can know that that's what he's working for today. And I broke up his day into the morning, recess, mid-morning, lunch, and afternoon. You'll notice that there's a 6th area. This is for his behavior. This is just for getting work done and paying attention, but this is for behavior, and he can be on green, yellow, or red. And my yellow and red stickers are there. So if his behavior was not being very good, this would come off, go back onto the Velcro, and he would need to put the yellow sticker on. When he was younger, he would have somebody else maintaining this for him, but now he's maintaining it himself. Also, there are stars and little tool symbols. So if he, at the end of the morning, if he feels that he has done a good job, he would rip one of these off the Velcro, don't you love Velcro, and put it right onto the morning like that, so he would know that he did a good job. If he felt that he didn't do a great job, and again, it's that self-monitoring that he's at. Before, it was somebody doing it for him. But if he felt he didn't do a good job and he needed to work on it, then he would put the little tool symbol on. I didn't want to put a frowny face because I just want him to know that it's something to work on. And our deal is, at the start of this school year, that if he gets 3 stars out of the 5, then he gets whatever he was working for at the end of the day. Although he does have to stay on green. By the time he gets home, he's got to be on green. So he knows, and this is really a small one, so that he can look and chart his progress for the day, know what he's working for, and that when I pick him up from school, I have a clear idea of how he did. And if I start to see that he's constantly needing to work on things for recess, then I know there might be something to talk about with him or with a teacher. It's a really good way of keeping track of things. So how do you make this? It's really simple. I've made it a little bit more complicated because I want it to last. So I laminated it, but the Velcro is really an essential thing. That's the biggest cost in this, is the Velcro. You don't even have to use a computer if you don't want to, But if you want to use the computer, all I did was I went on Google and I searched for a scrapbook tag template. And I popped that in, and I could make a text box in it, and I could fill the text box with whatever I wanted. So that was simple. This was just a text box that I put in, but I could have done it by hand. And I did this on cardstock, and the rest of the paper is just regular paper, and as I said, I did it in different colors. So you can see on this piece of paper that I stacked my templates with my text boxes, and then I just cut them out individually. And I have here a sheet of laminating film. So I laid things out that I cut. Here are the little stars, and I can just stick them on, the little green dot, little red dot. It's sticky, so I can stick those right on, and of course I want to use as much of the paper as I can. Then I would peel another sheet of laminating, slap it on the top, cut them out. I have my handy little sticky dots for Velcro. On this one, when it got to where on the back to put all of the stickers, I put strips of Velcro. You could do that on both sides and just cut them out, but this was super duper easy to just peel off a piece of the Velcro and slap it right onto the thing, and it will last. And it also is functional so that if I wanted to only have 3 things on here, I could, and I can change these out if I decide that these aren't being gratifying enough. I could change them to Star Wars or anything that your child likes. And I can also automatically change this, that as he progresses in the coming weeks, I can then start saying to him, oh, now you have to get 4 stars in order to get the thing on the back, and eventually say 5 stars. And to work towards generalization, I want to keep making this smaller and smaller. For right now, he's going to keep it on his desk, but eventually I would have an icon on the desk that would let him know that only during breaks to pull it out and take a look at it. And in that way, I'm starting to be able to fade all of this out. You can do this for your child at home, and probably the whole project takes less than 45 minutes, and it'll last a really long time and is adaptable. So a great project to track your child's progress, and I'm sticking to my lamination sheet. It can get messy, but it's really fun to do. So good luck back to school, and hopefully this will be helpful to you. Thanks.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I told you that Kerry was going to go away, and you know what? I made him stay because as we were leaving and going to the video clip, I saw that somebody had written in and said, can't wait to see you tomorrow at our event in JC, Kerry. And I said, Kerry, what is that? And he said, I can't believe I didn't mention my nonprofit. And I said, well, can you stick around? Let's have you talk about that. So, Kerry, what is this event that's happening tomorrow in JC?
My hometown of Jersey City, we are hosting a grand opening for a grand opening for our real estate office in Jersey City called Team Jersey.
Okay.
And that organization wanted to get involved with me because they knew I was in the process of starting my own nonprofit called KFM, Making a Difference in the Community. And they wanted to help me specifically because they wanted to do a fundraiser during that event, which would actually be to raise money for an autism scholarship for kids pursuing college. So we are going to be fundraising to hopefully get at least 2 scholarships paid for, and then have the scholarship application ready to come out sometime later this year for a student for 2013. So it's a big opportunity, and after that, my long-term goal is to focus primarily on special need housing in the tri-state area of where I live in. So those are some goals I have currently.
Fabulous. So if people want to know more about your nonprofit, they can go to your website, which is www.kerry, Kerry, Magro, MAGROW.com. Correct?
Without the...
Oh.
Just Magro.
Oh, okay, very important. I'm blowing it left, right, and center here. My brain has gone. It's the dog days of summer, and I swear I've got heat stroke. But in any case, Kerry, so fabulous to have you here on the show, and so fabulous to hear about all the good work that you're doing. Keep it up.
Will do, and thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, another quick break, and we will come back to finish the show. I promise this time. Stick with us.
ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, was founded in 2004 by several passionate parents who believe that access to early, effective treatment is vital for individuals with autism. Together with Dr. Doreen Graham-Pache, the world's leading provider of therapy for autism, this group created ACT Today to do just as the name implies, take action immediately to treat autism spectrum disorders.
A lot of families and parents and even physicians don't yet accept the fact that we are recovering children with autism.
In 2006, inspired by her struggle to get treatment for her young son Wyatt, television producer and author Nancy Alspaugh Jackson and her husband Reed hosted a backyard benefit for the foundation called Denim and Diamonds for Autism. Tens of thousands of dollars were raised, and in 2008, Alspaugh Jackson took the helm of ACT Today as executive director.
This country has to come together to save a generation of children.
With a dedicated board of directors, a small but committed staff called the A-Team, as in autism, ACT Today is making a huge difference in the lives of children across the country. Grants that fund programs for behavior therapy, special needs schools, and summer camps. Medical needs like diagnostic tests and special diets. Basic safety equipment such as helmets for children who repetitively bang their heads, and fencing for those who wander. Assisted technologies and assistance dogs.
Hi, my name is Max, and I love my iPad too. It's so great. I can take photos.
In 2010, ACT for Military Families became the first national campaign to benefit military children with autism.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings.
ACT Today continues to educate and raise national awareness on the need for early and intensive intervention for an epidemic that affects at least 1 in 110 children.
I called on November 1st. And I'm like, how am I going to get notified? How are you going to let me know? And they ended up looking and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above.
ACT Today, fulfilling its mission of helping families with autism, one child at a time.
Welcome back. You know, something that we talk about a lot here is hope. And there's a good reason why we talk about hope, because as I said earlier, you know, we can spend all of our time in the negatives, right? And there are enough negatives to go around. But I think it's important to constantly set your sights for where you want to get to. Yep, we're all going to end up someplace different, and our kids are all not going to be Kerrys. And that's hard, right? But some of them are, and there are all different kinds of things and that our children can achieve, and as I said before, they're all worth it. And it's so important to not give up on ourselves, to not give up on our kids, and to let them become who they are, to give them the opportunities to reach their fullest potential. We can do that. And it's so hard for us not to define who we think our kids are going to be and not put them in a box and say, well, it's this or that, or it's this diagnosis, right? It's hard. It's hard for us to do it, and it's even harder for people who don't have daily access to our kids, who don't understand what an autism spectrum disorder is. So we have to battle our own misperceptions, and then we have to battle society's misperceptions. But when we can, I got to be honest with you, I kind of now want to do an interview with Kerry's parents and say, what was this like for you, and how busting with pride are you that you have this young man who is changing the world on a daily basis? How exciting must that be?
And again, we know it's not going to be everybody's story, but to be able to say to the world, look, here are the many, many faces of autism. It's really kind of amazing thing that, and if we can put enough different faces out there, people will stop looking at it as one thing. Because I think that's when we get into the most trouble. I don't know. You tell me. And you know that I always like to hear from you guys to hear what your opinion is on this. We just saw Kerry speak very eloquently in his video about a cure, and that he's out there advocating for autism and autism awareness, but he's not talking about a cure, right? But if we talk about progress, if we focus on progress, if we channel our energy into getting where we can get to, I think that's the most productive conversation to have. I say it all the time that there was that moment at the IEP meeting when somebody said to me, what do you want? And I said, I want for my child to go to typical kindergarten and to be caught up and to not be struggling to be in typical kindergarten. And she said to me, I don't know if that's possible, and it's really going to be hard. And I had that moment. It was the really clarifying moment for me as an autism parent where I felt the marble drop, and I thought, okay, don't talk to me about hard. I know all about hard. We all do. We know about hard, right? We get hard. But let's talk about what's possible. Let's talk about what's possible, and let's be uplifted by that. Let's remember that we don't know the end of all these stories. For Carly Fleischman's dad, and he talked about, we didn't know. But then there was that moment when Carly began to type. None of us know what the story is. We don't know what the end of the story is. Well, as this show ends, the conversation continues and continues and continues. I want to remind all of you that this show will re-air, and you can be staying here on Autism-Live and just watch episodes as they air. That if you have questions that you want to ask, even if you have questions for Kerry after the fact, you can write to us and we'll forward them to Kerry and see if we can take a couple of minutes of his time to answer your questions. So let's cycle through some of the different ways that you can keep in touch with us and some of the ways that you can be watching us through the rest of the hours of the day. There's our email address. Feel free to drop us a line. We'll answer your question in the next available show or refer you to an expert who will get back to you. You can be phoning in to us. If you don't prefer to email and you want to call in, leave a message for us. We'll get back to you as soon as we're back in the studio. There's Skype. You just saw we Skyped with Kerry. We can Skype with you wherever you are in the world, and we love to hear your stories. You can be talking to us with us on Facebook. We love your answers to the question of the day and your comments and your suggestions and your links that you provide. You can put them on our Facebook page. If there's something you want us to cover, do that. You can also be tweeting with us. We really enjoy when we interact with you in that way. There are other ways that you can be watching us besides here on autism-live.com. Check us out on blip.tv. You can be watching our very own YouTube channel. Check out Kerry's YouTube channel while you're there. You can download us for free on iTunes, and we are also available on Ustream. All of those different ways to watch. And again, I remind you, if there's a way that you would like to be watching us that you don't see on the screen in front of you, let us know, because it may just be that we don't know about it. Believe me, the things I don't know and the things that you could tell me, I know it's vast and it's huge. So share your knowledge, share your suggestions, share your questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Sometimes you ask a question and it informs everybody about what question to ask. Right? What's the question to ask that opens the door to things happening for your child? We're going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Evelyn Gould's going to be in the studio at 10 o'clock talking to us about teaching functional communication skills. And then at 11 o'clock, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Allspot-Jackson will be here, and our special guest will be Danny Bowman, who is a wonderful artist who's going to be talking with us about the kinds of things that she does and her involvement with inclusion films. You're really going to love it. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.